Coming up on today's show, myself, Erik Beimfohr from Spike Week, and Pat Kerrane from Legendary Upside get into another episode of Legendary Sickos where we give some of our convictions for 2026. We're about to get to training camp and be inundated with tons of news and snap counts and who's running with the ones and who's maybe not going to make the team. And all of that stuff is going to be really, really important here down the home stretch of the fantasy football and best ball draft season. But right now, Kerrane and I wanted to talk a little bit about what are the things that we are most convicted in, whether that be some individual players, some structures, some draft strategies, some market tendencies. And we got really deep into some of those market tendencies, specifically as it pertains to the running back position, which kind of led us down a funny path of using everything that's happened over the course of the best ball history, everything we've learned from the last 5-6 seasons of best ball, this new game of best ball. How does it compare to redraft? What are the things that we can take from history and apply it to this year? What are some of the things that are a little bit different about this year that we should maybe be thinking a lot more forward looking than looking into the past? We get into all sorts of different lessons that we've learned and how we're applying them to 2026 here on this episode of Legendary Sickos. Let's do it. All right, Pat, we are back after a marathon few weeks of, if anybody wants to listen to 10 hours of a team-by-team breakdown of every NFL best ball stack, every possible player, we got you covered, as well as mixing in a little bit of a high-stakes draft in there over the last 5 weeks. But today, we are going to discuss some of our convictions. We have training camp coming up, and dude, it's honestly crazy. I remember when we first started doing this and we would get a little bit of news and stuff from training camp. Like we just started to get like, oh, there's beats there. Like this guy's running with the ones, or, this guy seems to be getting targeted a lot. And now it's like OTAs and mini camp. And I know how many routes a guy has run. I know how many, how many times I know exactly the pecking order, in every backfield at every practice. And so we're going to get so much information here in just a few weeks that I think it's a good time to all right, what are the things you're most convicted about? What's the thing that if you had to do one draft or two drafts, which is I think what we'll do today, that you would take? You know what I mean? Because it's easy to be like, well, I'm gonna take my 8% of that guy, or I'll take a little bit of that guy, or I'll take this guy when he falls. What are your convictions? Because I think some of them are probably going to change in a few weeks. So right now is a pretty good time to try to tackle this.
Yeah, I think this will be a fun one. I think this can be good or bad, right? We can talk through some of the stuff we're pretty convicted is not good, stuff that is good, things that, I mean, ideally, right? These are things you're convicted on, and then training camp actually, goes your way.
Yeah.
And so then, right, like it's time to draft this guy because he's not getting cheaper. I'll kick one off if we want to get started.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll kick it off with Jonathan Brooks isn't getting cheaper.
That's a good one.
So we just took spoilers for the minisodes, but I think this one is out or will be out soon. But in the 7th round of the main event, we were kind of in a flat spot of the slow main event that we're doing with ship chasing, and wanted a receiver. There was a receiver that we were thinking about pretty strongly there, just reaching for. And I was like, basically what I like to do in these minisodes, I kind of float stuff. So even if I don't fully think we should do it, let's talk through this. Let's talk through that. What do you guys thoughts on this? What do you guys thoughts on that? So one of the ones I floated was Jonathan Brooks. Hey, we only have 2 running backs through 6 rounds. What if we add a running back 3? We want running back to start. So it's not like a desperate sort of situation, but I'm like, hey. And the more we talk through it, and Pete was really making the point that he's not getting cheaper, and it's like, yeah, dude, especially there's certain guys who best ball guys kind of as Jacob would write about, kind of the left wing slappies are gonna but then the kind of the more old school fantasy players who also like to project things forward and follow the news and everything. and dare I say are a little bit slappy, they're gonna be in on Brooks too. And we've seen over in the FFPC in the main event, like Darwin Thompson was, I think, a 6th or 7th round pick in his rookie season. You know, Justice Hill was like an 8th round pick, and me and Pete, there's a clip of us on the YouTube, literally just like giddy as we select Justice Hill, who was a terrible pick in his rookie season. He's still in the league, which is kind of funny. He wasn't like, there was something there, but he's like an 8th round pick. Did not work at all. There's like a long history of these guys getting steamed up. I mean, JCM, I think at the end of FFPC was probably 7th round, 8th round. I think we took him in the 8th round early and felt good about the CLV. So Brooks, I think the coaching staff wants him to have a role. They drafted him in the 2nd round a few years ago. He seems healthy enough. He's probably going to ramp up as the season goes on in terms of like getting more and more work. You can argue that he never will be a true lead running back, that he's always going to be kind of more of a committee guy, that he's never really been a true workhorse, that, Chuba Hubbard may be better suited to kind of carry the load, that he's already overpriced. And like, sure, like you could, I mean, maybe you're right, but like also this is the cheapest you're ever going to get him. That's my conviction.
I totally agree with that. It's such a funny one because I mean, I'm excited. I think we're both excited. At least I know I'm excited to see Jonathan Brooks. It would be nice to see him play football, for once. So I think that's as much of it as anything for me. But I don't think anyone can say confidently they know that how this thing is going to go. But there is this sort of mystery box element paired with a veteran that's just average, in Chuba Hubbard and nothing else in that backfield, where there's just like sometimes there's guardrails on the rise, but like there just effectively is nothing stopping him from moving up, because at least sometimes we have like Bill last year, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt last year was like, okay, this guy was a 7th round pick. We definitely did the like making excuses for why he was a 7th round pick in order to get him up that far, right? We all probably did this. Like, well, if you look back at this and you look at when he was at UNLV.
By the way, we were right. Like by 7th round pick standards, even though he didn't like absolutely smash, like it was fine. He was a weird prospect. Like he didn't really he didn't get to play in his final season. Like the error bars were wider there, and I think he already has proven that, because most 7th round picks don't get the run that he got.
Totally.
So
but I do think
that was
we
good
have
analysis.
The mystery box element. We have a penchant for getting out over our skis as a fantasy community because of what you said. So I don't think there's anything to like. It could Jonathan Brooks, like you said, already be well overpriced? Yeah, that's absolutely possible. Like, this is Chuba Hubbard's backfield. He's a change of pace. He's, has not played football effectively in multiple years. Like, that's probably not a guy that they do want him to be a part of their future. That's probably not a guy we want to overload with work, in his first season back. So there's, of course, red flags, but there's also like a ceiling to where we're drafting this. I mean, I don't know, in the 2nd round, 3rd round next year, like like you said, the error bars, the range of outcomes on Jonathan Brooks is so insanely wide. And those are the guys that just like something he'd have to get hurt, I guess, in camp for him to fall. I think I'm not even sure what they could possibly say, because they're definitely
he'd have to have some kind of physical setback.
Yeah. Because they're going to speak highly of him. Like, even if they're like, no, Chuba's our starter, they're still going to keep hyping this guy up because they are excited for him, and I think they should be excited for him. And so, I'm totally with you on that. So I like Jonathan. I like Jonathan Brooks too. I maybe have to end up letting you have him in these drafts we do here if we're going to be fighting over, what did you say, 7th round, Jonathan Brooks.
That's what. Yeah, in the main event. I mean, that's the thing. Like. And one thing I think when you're trying to figure out like, hey, is this guy going to move up? It's helpful to go look at the FFPC, particularly for running backs, because the running backs have a little bit of a premium there. And I think the main event drafters do a good job of looking for that kind of like real upside profile. Like who,
Yeah.
And like they also take running backs I don't like at all, but like I think generally, the market does it. It makes you pay for upside at running back, like consistently year after year. There are a few exceptions, like Alvin Kamara, I think was going in the 11th round of his rookie season because he was kind of buried in like a 3-way split. Nick Chubb was like a 10th round pick. I remember getting like me and Pete took him as a rookie and getting like roasted at the live drafts because it's like, oh, the Browns running back 3, like great pick, guys. But that's because it's like he was there with Carlos Hyde and someone else, and then they traded Hyde eventually, and that's what unlocked him. So like if a guy's like looks buried, sometimes you can get upside that way by betting on the talent profile. But if someone's like the running back 1 or the running back 2 and has like some real upside, kind of talent based bet situation, you're just not going to get them very cheaply. Like Kenny Gainwell is going in the 7th round as well. So that's the thing. Like
really funny to include Kenny Gainwell in the Jonathan Brooks upside conversation. I completely understand.
It's like the 1B play, right? Like,
yep,
you gotta pay up for those guys. The cheapest of those is probably like the Commander situation. All those backs are still relatively cheap outside the top 95 picks anyway. So, but yeah, I mean, I think the FFPC is ahead of the market here, at least directionally, that Brooks is going to keep rising. And this, like, I get it if you're already out on Brooks. He used to be a lot cheaper than he is now. But I don't think he's getting cheaper. So if you want him, I would take him.
It's one of those, I think, if you just want to full fade something, I can never judge anyone for our own personal preferences are what they are. But it seems like a profile I would want to have, like, at least in my portfolio. He doesn't have to be, the linchpin of my portfolio if the price makes me nauseous. But if you want to get in and get some shares, I agree. I would do it right now, because I also think at the end of the day, whether he goes, like, this is going to sound maybe silly, but I don't think it is when you look at all the players that go in the range, specifically at running back. Like, does it really matter if he's 115 or 80? Like, at a certain point, there's going to be someone he crosses in ADP that it matters. But, like, does it like, it's a 2v2 of, like, we've done this sort of thought experiment before, but, like,
this is why he's not gonna get cheaper, because it doesn't really matter. Like, you're telling me he can't go ahead of Rico Dowdle? Like, he can.
Yeah, like, who cares? Like, Rico Dowdle is a committee bet on a also not great offense and doesn't have the talent upside. He probably has a higher floor just because he's a reliable veteran or whatever. But, like, I don't know, does he? So anyway,
he does, but, like, in a way that's, like, I'm not sure really matters.
Like, functional,
like, it's like he's got like really... he's like, oh, you, like, kind of like, my team didn't make it, but it finished 7th. Like, not last.
You can definitely get last with a whole bag of Jonathan Brooks.
Oh yeah.
But the Rico Dowdle season, and I draft Rico Dowdle just fine, whatever. But, like, the Rico Dowdle season where Jaylen Warren never gets hurt is like, oh, cool, you got 9th, in your pod. Congratulations. Like, it's not moving the
needle. There's definitely
there is a non-zero floor, but that I do think thinking about that and sort of transitioning into my first stand, which, by the way, is we're going to draft BBM teams, Best Ball Mania, on Underdog. And this is specific kind of to that contest. I think I've told you this before, my first sort of conviction, but it led me into, I think overall, one of my greatest convictions is we do sort of overrate floor. We talk about week 17 is all that matters. We talk about, like, yeah, man, these are top heavy tournaments with hundreds of thousands of people. With, even if you make it to week 17, that's a miracle. And then if you make it to week 17, you need to finish highly amongst whatever 500 people. On DraftKings, it's like 1,100 people. And, like, just getting to week 17 in the DraftKings Millie is, like, that's an incredible accomplishment. And, like, dude, if you don't,
and potentially something you'll forget about the next year.
You won't even care. Like, because it's such a big. So we talk about a lot of this, and then we end up overrating the floor of, like, everything. I think it's just inherently natural that you're like, especially right now, dude, it's June 26th as we're recording this. Like everything feels like a scary floor in June. You know what I mean? So like we often, like Rico Dowdle's like he was pretty, he's been pretty solid for the last couple of seasons. And, Jalen Warren's not going to get all the work. So like this is fine. Like I said, I mean, I draft Rico Dowdle, but I think there is still an element to the game of best ball, specifically these huge flagship, monstrous tournaments where we aren't really swinging enough, where we aren't really embracing whatever it is about this season or this specific tournament or site or whatever. And like, I've called it this year on some of my shows, like putting my cojones on the table, like, do you believe in this thing or not? Like, in it, so like I'm gonna play the DFS slate tonight for baseball. I played last night, and I stacked the St. Louis Cardinals game. It got rained, but it was really risky weather. It got rained out. I played 2 awesome pitchers. If that game had played, I don't know, man. I might be a rich man today, but it didn't. And I don't regret a single set. I don't regret. I donated, a mortgage payment, and that sucks. But like, it is what it is. And I feel like, but in best ball, we're always like, we treat it like I can't lose this money. I can't possibly, take this big risk. And so one of my big things for Best Ball Mania specifically is I'm drafting 150 zero running back teams because everyone says you can't draft zero running back. It doesn't work. It definitely doesn't work now. It doesn't work this time of year. It doesn't, right? Everything. And I understand all of the arguments against, a light early running back approach. But I actually think there are a lot of reasons to be excited for it. The market has moved up running backs a ton while moving down the cheaper running backs. Once you get into like round 12, 13, all those guys used to go a little bit higher. And I do think there are upside swings combined with floor
swings, yeah.
Combined with floor plays in the middle. The Jonathan Brooks. I talked about Blake Corum this morning as to like maybe we're getting the Rams backfield wrong. The way they do kind of keep talking about Corum getting more work, and like they're like, well, Kyron's not going to lose the job because he's good on passing downs, and it's like, yeah, so is Samaje Perine. But if they keep saying like we really want to give Corum more rushing work, like that dude shouldn't be going at pick 100. Those are just specific examples, but one of my convictions on underdog, especially, everyone is really following the same path in terms of how they draft. And I think there's understandable reasons for the course correction on the early running back prices, but I think it's an exploitable thing that we've been given because the idea of zero running back hasn't really worked so well the last couple of seasons. And we're really anchored to that. And then we have somewhat reasons to believe like, 12 and 13 personnel and all these different things that are driving more running back production. But like, doesn't that drive all running back production? Like, if we get just a couple of injuries and a couple of breakouts, the next thing it is another awesome zero running back or hero running back type season. But I don't think our opponents are really willing to go down that road. So one of my convictions, again, so a little bit more on underdog because of some ADP stuff, and it's a sharper site, and only 18 rounds I think helps me a little bit with zero running back, which is also sort of counterproductive or counterintuitive. But yeah, pretty excited about that, and I think it has a lot to do with some of the things that also make Jonathan Brooks a good pick and a riser.
Yeah, I think the thing I would push back on a little bit is the pricing, because like when you and me and Ben and Pete did that stream, that was like 2022. It might have been 2021. I think it was the year Liam won. It wasn't the year.
I think 2021.
It was the year before I won. Yeah. So the pricing, like I was looking at Liam's board, and I'm pretty sure 11 running backs went in the first round of his draft room. I'm not sure what the ADP was overall, but I remember it being a lot more running back heavy.
4 years ago.
Quickly.
4 years ago. Yeah.
And so like half the first round is running backs and half the first round is receivers now. So it feels to me like, running backs are still, we've moved running backs up, but like they're still cheaper than they were, especially in those first like 4 rounds. and mostly receivers have brought, because the quarterbacks are all, there was a time when we were taking quarterbacks, like a few of them in the first 55 picks. Now there's one, right? Lamar goes shortly thereafter, but it's like,
that was a sharp tout cutoff,
right? Sharp tout. You like
Lamar
that, huh?
goes like 56. Yeah,
56. Yeah, you see what I did? But let's say, first 4 rounds, there's one quarterback that goes there. Now there was a time where we kind of overinflated the elite quarterback pricing,
definitely,
and we were taking like a few of them in the second or third round, which helped push down wide receivers at least a little, and running backs at least a little. So it's like both positions are expensive now. And there's been like a narrative of like, oh, like capitulation, we've returned to kind of the old school running back pricing. Like, no, we haven't. We have not returned to the old running back pricing. Like, that's just not true. And I think, not to say that you were saying that, but like that is kind of like, I hear that a lot. And I think it's okay to like just be honest, to like, hey, like running backs are still a lot cheaper than they used to be, even if they're more expensive than they were over the last couple of years. Like, there was kind of a push and pull to this. So that's where I'm just like, it's just, there was a time where like we were getting elite wide receivers paired with one another. And that was like part of the reason that zero running back, which worked really well in Best Ball Mania. The year that I won, zero running back was the dominant strategy that season. And Justin Jefferson was like a mega advance rate guy, and then crushed weeks 15 and 16, and then flamed out in week 17.
Didn't he catch like one pass in week 17?
It's literally the worst game of his entire career was in that week 17 game, like to date.
Yeah,
and
against the Packers, I think against the Packers.
Yeah, against the Packers. And he has since had JJ McCarthy. He's had, he's had Max Brosmer. Like, he's never had a worse game than that game. And crazy. He was like the guy that you would have wanted heading into that week. And I think it's like on 50% or something of the team. So actually, like, the pivot strategy, like getting a first round running back in who then went off, which I did with Eckler, was like huge leverage on the Jefferson teams. But it's just like, you're just lucky to get in without Jefferson. But then it became like now, okay, all the non-Jefferson teams, someone without Jefferson is going to win because you have, the first round pick flaming out there. But like the year I won, I didn't go zero running back, and like it ended up working out. But you have to say zero running back was the better strategy that season.
Right.
And that was a year where we did see like a few wide receivers go in the first round, but it's still like not like this. Like we had, let me see if I can pull this up. So that year was Taylor, McCaffrey, Eckler, Henry, Cook, Harris, Mixon, Barkley, Kamara, Swift, Jones, Javonte, and Fournette were, so that's 13 running backs in the first 2 rounds.
But that's what we have right now, almost have right now. Because I think what I would,
I guess you're right.
Push back. It
is kind of closer than I would have thought.
The first round. I think we're sort of, we've gotten smart. I could not possibly agree more with what you said, that like we have not gone back to like 5, and we're never going to go back to like 5 years ago pricing. Like, you're just not getting the absolute superstar wide receiver in like the mid-second round ever again. Like, he has to be hurt, like, or fucking in jail, like Rashee Wright. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not happening. But we do have this sort of weird, once those truly unquestioned elite fantasy wide receivers, which is the cutoff on Underdog at least, is Justin Jefferson, right? So Chase, Puka, JSN, Amon-Ra, CD, and Justin Jefferson, they go in the top 10. And I think that's right. But then it's like, last year, and frankly, the last couple of years, we would speculate, right? Remember Marvin Harrison at the 112 as a rookie?
Yeah.
You know, Brian Thomas Jr. after a great rookie season going at the one,
turn.
we would like Drake London would go there now. Probably AJ Brown goes to the Patriots. We'd be like, holy fuck. This is the dream. We're going to get AJ. We might have taken now once there becomes everybody's finally like, okay, these are no longer unquestioned elite superstar wide receivers. Now we're going to take these running backs, and we're willing to speculate on the running backs more. So I think that's where we've kind of gone back to. It's not all the way back to what it was before, but a little of like when the rubber starts to meet the road and everybody gets kind of questionable. Like we're all excited for Ashton. This all starts at Ashton Genty. From Ashton Genty to Derrick Henry, there is not a wide receiver or a tight end in that range. And I think in years past there might have been, whether it's London or AJ Brown or Bowers or Trey. I mean, Trey McBride just went straight fucking scorched earth as a tight end last season, and is like now going in like the middle of the third, early to mid third. So I think it's some of that, and then that also sort of creates like Jeremiah Love, fine. Breece Hall, fine. But then after kind of your ETNs and Kerranes and Javantes, the boring, like these guys are not league winners, but I'm going to get my volume here, from those guys that we tend to not like, the Josh Jacobs or whatever the world. I do think there's some fun, like Cam Scatterboo, I'm pretty excited for, goes outside.
Young backs. Yeah.
You're right. Bashal Tootin, Travion Henderson, we're getting a nice discount now on Bucky Irving. You say whatever you want about Quinshon Judkins. He's clearly going to get the rock for the Cleveland Browns, whatever. So I think we're getting minor discounts on some of those guys. And then it's pulled up to like, I don't dislike Ken Walker. I love Ashton Genty. I don't dislike Saquon and all. We talked about him last week being a great pick, but I do think the second round is just like fucking running back zone now. So like you almost like have to come away with a running back if you're at least somewhat following ADP, unless you just take Brock Bowers like I like to do. So that has then also made the the true hand, like the Tank Bigsby, Ray Davis type handcuffs, just like really, really, really cheap. Like super duper cheap. It's basically just Blake Corum, and we're expecting him to be a little bit more than a handcuff. And obviously, those guys are just straight CV vets. You got to be able to build your room smartly if you're attaching on these CV vets. But like, we're supposed to be decent drafters, right? Like, fucking figure it out. You know what I mean? Like, figure out. Like, oh, you really like Ray Davis. I really like Ray Davis. I really like Tank Bigsby. It's like, well, I need to figure out how the hell to make a running back room that still works. And then just the last thing that I would say is, I think maybe my biggest conviction in all of this is people will use both on underdog, like the underdog is better for running backs. I don't disagree. Half PPR with no bonuses, of course, it's better for running backs, right? Like, but that means all running backs. You know who was really fucking good for a few years ago was the breakout Kyren Williams. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, when you get a breakout cheap running back, it's an even bigger smash on underdog. And then the whole this 12, 13, like the disappearance of the wide receiver 2 and wide receiver 3 for fantasy. I don't even disagree. So what's that good for? The superstar wide receivers, right? If I can get more tight ends and I can get more running backs that score points, okay, what position do I need to probably get the really fucking good superstars that are not going to disappear? It's at wide receiver. So I do think there's any strategy can work. Like at the end of the day, like you said, if Justin Jefferson is 50% owned in the final and duds, like who gives a shit? But just like from a even when I take
but the better strategy
that
year was zero running back. Like that's the variance of there is not like I'm saying like, oh, even then it didn't really work. I'm saying like that was actually the best way to build teams that year. The final is what it is, but it was an awesome year for zero running back, and the pricing is more similar than I realized because 2021 was the year I was looking at where I was like, oh man, this is different. But 2022 it still worked quite well.
We did that show at end of 2021, like close to the.
It was the summer. It was the summer before the 2021 season,
and
then the 2022 season was. We successfully did zero running back the following year after that.
Got it.
Yeah.
Because you know what's crazy? Also, just to look back on that, it's like Now we're just drafting literally 365 days a year, and there's always a new contest. Like if Underdog doesn't launch a new contest every week, we're like, man, what's going on with best ball? Like back then, like year one of Underdog, they had one tournament and it got to like 80% full, and it was like the size of the Puppy 7 or whatever. Like the times have changed a lot, and so that's also some of this back and forth is like, dude, the volume, like the liquidity in this game is like 10,000 times what it was those couple of years ago.
Yeah, I think that probably the biggest difference for me between these two seasons, I look back at it, is like it's not so much the number of running backs going early. It's like the profiles of the running backs that are going early, and that like you have the Judkins and Tootin and Jadarian Price and these guys who Travion Henderson, where it's like, you mentioned Scattaboo, he fits right into this. These are like the upside profiles. Some of them are guys that typically do go in this range, and some of them are like a little bit more like, hey, I'm actually not sure how much volume this guy's going to get, but he's really good, so let's draft him.
Right.
And then there's like the stinky profiles that were like fairly obvious avoids if you're the type of drafter who's just like, I'm going to fade volume on guys who I don't think are very good, like Damian Pierce, who was going, in the 5th round of off of that season.
Speaking back to
Mike Davis, who's like
the Mike Davis on the Falcons. Yeah,
Mike Davis on the Falcons. Chase Edmonds on the Dolphins. Like there's just some like, just some like things where like I don't think this guy's very good, and it's like the situation is somewhat in flux. Is like Pierce was entering year 2, but they signed Devin Singletary, who ended up taking the job over the course of the year that year. So it's like it's to me, it's like, hey, you condense the group of like upside swings at running back, and you don't have those layered over like the course of several rounds. So it's harder to get multiple of those. And it's still like hard to get multiple elite receivers together. Like I did, CeeDee Lamb was going in the 2nd round of the drafts in 2022, like stuff like that, where you're like, oh, that seems nice.
When Pete and I finished top 10 that year, we got CeeDee Lamb at the 2-3. We I think we had the 101 and took Chase. Yeah, we took Jamar Chase 101, which was hilariously got scoffed at because that was the JT and Dalvin were the 101 and 102, I think, which is also really funny to look back on. Like it was silly to take Jamar Chase over Dalvin Cook. Like people were like, no, that's what we had the 102, I think, and we took Chase over Dalvin Cook. And we sort of did the like, come on, are we real? Like I showed up and like Pete was like, we're gonna have fun, right? Like we're not taking Dalvin fucking Cook, right? Like I'm like, no, dude, we're taking Jamar Chase, right? So we take Jamar Chase, but yeah, we got CeeDee Lamb at the 2-3 turn, and we hilariously took Kyle Pitts at the at the 2-3 turn. So we get these things wrong, but again, I mean, that was a really good team that we had.
Yeah.
But to your point, I think that's maybe the biggest deal that no one talks about is what you just said. It's not that running backs are at like prices that we can't build, like, and
the pricing is closer. That like you look at the first few rounds and it's like, the pricing, it does actually look more similar to 2022,
but the spread
than I would have thought. I compared it to,
you said is good. It's a really good point.
Yeah, back in the day, which 2022 wasn't like fully back in the day because like we had already started to shift things a little bit, but it's still it's still a year that zero running back worked quite well, and it worked quite well with very similar overall pricing to this. So that's a pretty strong point in your favor. But yeah, it's going to be about finding those upside profiles at running back, and where those, how do you get enough of those upside profiles at running back on your team? I think you probably need to hit on the right commanders back. That seems like a really important one. I mean, obviously, like you could build a good zero running back team without the commanders back, but that seems like one of the most obvious ways to go. It'd probably be helpful to you actually if Beimfohr Tuten sucks and you can get Chris Rodriguez really cheap now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that Chris Rodriguez is not, I'm not hoping that happens, but I mean, he's certainly like a zero running back viable type of guy now.
This is this is so gross, but it's like discount Javonte Williams or like dollar store Javonte Williams of last year, where we're like, look, this guy's obviously not very. I mean, Javonte had I'm not trying to compare them apples to apples, but I'm just saying like that's the boring veteran with the sexy young player that's around him. Tuten is much better than Jaden Blue, as evidenced by the price and all that kind of stuff. But it's like if the run out happens to be in Chris Rodriguez's favor, it would be.
Could also be like. So we talk a lot about Zach Moss and Chase Brown, and Chase Brown being a smash, and then Tuten is the Chase Brown, obviously there is the second year back. But what if it's not that year? It's the year before, and Zach Moss is basically the Colts version.
Yeah,
where he filled in there for Jonathan Taylor, but in this case the filling in is because Tuten's just not very good, and he's just like it's like, oh yeah, a guy like Zach Moss like has hit in the past, so. I was on Fantasy Sanctuary. I took Chris Rodriguez in like the 13th round or something. If he falls far enough.
Did your like skin start to boil or anything when you?
No, I was like, we got to take him. This is ridiculous.
Isn't it funny? Isn't it funny how that works? And like, I actually think when I was first starting out in this stupid ass game in this silly career that we have, like I wouldn't have even been willing to do that. I would have just been like, no, dude, I hate this guy. I like, and now it's like, yeah, like guess what? This shit has nuance. You know what I mean? And like,
I like flipping it in my brain and going like at this price, like when Chris Rodriguez is going, like in the 9th round or whatever, I'm like, what are we doing? This guy's like, he's limited. He's probably the number 2.
He's caught like 12 passes in 7 years or whatever.
Yeah, like even if he's better than Tuten, he's not gonna be like way better. And then they have like Quint Allen. Like, come on. But if he falls to like 145, I'm like, Tuten might suck. He couldn't even pass Travis Etienne. Like, what are we doing? Like, this is so cheap. You guys lost your minds? This could be the starter in Jacksonville.
Yeah, it's so funny. The 2 rounds or whatever of ADP. Yeah, you go from, have you guys lost your mind? This guy's way too expensive to don't you know that, like, look at this guy's success rate. You know what I mean? Like, look,
it's pretty good.
Look how
his rush yards are expected pretty good. He's sneaky explosive. People act like Chris Rodriguez can't play, dude. Like, give me a break.
Didn't you watch the preseason game where everybody got excited for Bill, but Chris Rodriguez's first touch he took for like 60 yards? Never mind the fact he got hawked from behind, but he did have like a 60-yard carry in the first preseason game. But yeah, I think I don't know if it's wisdom or just less hubris or something like that. But yeah, like.
In a way, it's more hubris. That's what I enjoy about it. You get to be hubristic in both directions.
Right. You can never wrong. Never wrong, not early either. Right on time. But I do think we do still have, it's not as sexy, but we do still have that 0 running back window of ambiguous backfields, some young players, some dusty veterans who just like, tough shit. Aaron Jones is going to score some fantasy points until he gets hurt again. Like, it's going to happen. You don't have to like it, but it is. We talked about those Steelers guys. Like, they're going to get the rock. Like, we're making fun of the floor of Rico Dowdle, but they do have 2 guys who are going to play football. And like Kenny Gainwell and Jalen Warren were both awesome for fantasy last year. The Vikings stuff. Yeah, Chris Rodriguez falling now. Tyrone Tracy is going to. I don't really like him either, but he's going to play football for the New York Giants. Like Cam Scatterboo is going to get the high value stuff. Also, Cam Scatterboo just destroyed his leg last year, and it's not, he likes to headbutt things, and crazy stuff happens. Which is my last point, which is like, I feel like we don't think about the chaos factor as much anymore because it hasn't played out in the running back's favor, and like even when running back chaos has happened, it's like hasn't bred a like league winner type situation. Like, we had the Kyron thing, and then, we kind of had Bucky, and Javonte last year is like the biggest winner. We haven't had, like guys will do it for a stretch or something like that. Chuba was good a couple of years ago. Dowdle was good for a stretch last year, but we've never had like, oh fuck, dude, CMC's out. you know, like you want the San Francisco 49ers backup whoever that is, when CMC is out. You know, we haven't had that. It's always just been like, yep, Bijan plays 17 games and Gibbs plays 17 games and Derrick Henry plays 17 games. And like, you know, it is what it is. It's sort of been so long since either this like mega crazy breakout like Kerrane out of nowhere or someone got hurt. But the data actually suggests that the running backs are getting hurt just as often. It just happens to not be like the most fantasy relevant guys.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, James Conner gets hurt and you're like, oh man, better have Trey Benson. Oh no, he's hurt too. now he's hurt too, you know? And it's like, you know, Cam Scatterboo goes down. Tyron Tracy's fine, but he's on a bad Giants team that lost Malik Neighbors. And like, you know,
the problem is that Tyron Tracy wasn't fine. Tyron Tracy stunk.
He scored fantasy points like okay for his price after Cam Scatterboo was gone, was what I sort of meant. Like he had like 160 rushing yards in a game or whatever. Like it was, if he was on your team, after Cam Scatterboo was out, you were like, oh, whatever, I'm gonna get some points, which is sort of
but like
a thing.
It sucks. Okay,
right.
like, come on. Right.
But that's what I'm saying. Those are like Cam Scatterboo goes down and you're like, you're supposed to get a 0 RB winner. And it just hasn't happened. It doesn't mean it can't or it won't ever happen again.
Yeah, but you're right. There's like chaos to the chaos. Because like the year that Brees went down, Michael Carter was like obviously like a bad pick because Brees came and took his job and then Brees goes down. And then they're like, we hate this guy. We still hate this guy. And I think it was like Zonovan Knight, Bam Knight took over.
Bam Knight.
Yeah. So it's like, you have to be, this is one of my concerns, by the way, with like the current, especially doing zero running back now, is like, I don't know who the number twos are in some key contingent situations. Like, is Seth McGowan a good pick? Is DJ Giddens a good pick? Like, there's a lot of, like, like, before the main event goes live, you know, if you draft now, you get, you know, this like preseason waiver wire run. And there's a lot of guys I think that are going to be like people I'm bidding on in that waiver run that I don't, but I don't like know which guys I'm going to be bidding on yet. And so that I do think, you know, in addition to the kind of styles of guys getting priced up and it being a little bit hard to find like the pure upside swings, there is some of that too, like the contingent bets. I just don't know. I don't know who to take on a number of these teams. And then like there's some, like, I don't know, like there are guys I know about are like in situations that I'm not psyched about. Like Tyler Algier is like a good player, but like, God, he's on the Cardinals.
I know.
You know? And then like Brian Robinson, I guess, but like, man, he's not a particularly exciting. Like he was boring when he was a starter. You know, and that one's pretty clear.
What do you win? Yeah, what do you even win with
there's so much. Then like Dylan Sampson, like great, but now I have like a undersized Browns guy. Like that could I'm drafting Dylan. That's one of the ones I'm doing.
I know.
Tyjae Spears doesn't have ACLs. Like that seems somewhat limited in upside.
Well, he's definitely going to have arthritis when he gets older, but I think he can still score fantasy points if Tony Pollard's not there.
I mean, I draft him too, but like, you know, it's just, it does seem like a weaker year for these guys right now. I'm like still hopeful. I'm starting to like, I've got my eye on some of these guys. Jaden Blue's making a little noise. I'm ready to get hurt again on Marshawn Lloyd. I'm
absolutely,
you know,
there are some rookies back there, which I'm not excited about. One thing, you know, Kerrane, you mentioned Washington is like,
Kerrane could be big.
Could just be Kerrane.
But he also makes the other guys harder to click.
Well, totally. The ambiguity is both a good thing and a bad thing,
right?
Because that's what keeps guys cheap. And if you hit, the impact is huge, right? Like if Kerrane just takes Bill's job, he's not gonna take Rashad's job, but like takes Bill's job, you know, that's an absolute home run. It's also like right now it's more uncomfortable, you know, certainly because we're not in Trent, right? We're talking about this before training camp, and in August we'll be able to talk very differently about some of these backfields, and not all of them, because we don't find out all of them, by the way. Like we may not know that DJ Giddens, Seth McGowan answer.
No, we might not.
And it may not be either.
We might
of them.
think the wrong one. Yeah. And it might not matter. Yeah.
Right. Like I have drafted Deneric Prince and Carson Steele and shit, you know, because I think they're giving me information that ends up being inaccurate information. But anyway, it sort of leads me to Rob Coakley, who has worked with me for quite some time, coined it like the sandwich build, which is kind of where I lean more to. So like when people think zero running back, like, oh, you're taking all these late running backs, and I'm like, kinda, but not really. I have a couple that I really like. Like I said, Ray Davis is like my favorite, the mental health hack. Like Tank Bigsby is definitely the backup to Saquon Barkley. Like I like those guys the best. But I do like from scat to Chris Rodriguez or whatever, is like I would like to just build my running back room through there. And it's like I'm not really, maybe one or two guys, like I said, Ray Davis, Tank Bigsby to polish this off or something like that. But I don't take, or I try not to take as many of the just like, man, I don't want to get into all these lottery tickets, which is definitely something that I've done the last couple of years that's been a huge mistake, where I'm like, I believe in this zero running back thing, and look at all these idiots taking all these, and then I'm like, I'm gonna draft a whole bunch of running backs. But like, I wasn't thinking about the market. I wasn't thinking about the time of the calendar, the calendar in terms of
when are you typically taking your first running back? 4 or 5?
I really like 4. Yeah, like the 4, scat.
Okay. So that's not like full zero running back.
Right, exactly. That's
more like 3x receiver, or which I'm doing. And I'm doing more of that now. Like I'm already starting to get more to. I still do like hyper fragile more than anything else right now, but in these slows that I'm getting going, I've got like a decent amount of 3x, 4x receiver, or 3x receiver with a tight end, or 3x, and then you go running back 1 in the 4th. That build I do. It used to be. We used to call zero running back 0 through 5.
Yeah,
in my day, So that's the build that I'm struggling with, because you have the running backs in 4 and 5 are like a pretty clear tier to me, and then you might get lucky in the early 6th and get like a Jadarian Price fall to you or something like that. But outside of that, that means you're actually at that point like in the mid 6th. What am I gonna pull up, like Tony Pollard, Chuba Hubbard, or Jalen Warren? Like, let me just take another guy. I'd probably take a quarterback actually, and go tight end, 4 receivers, and quarterback through 6, and then running back 1 in the 7th at that point. But then I'm like, well, probably going to do another draft after this.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think this one's the winner.
But I do think that maybe this is my actual biggest conviction. We're coming up with like, this is like Inception. It's convictions within convictions here as we talk it through. But it is, I think, and I've done, again, these are, when I talk to people, like more convictions about the things that I believe in, is like, because I did that wrong, and I've done that wrong a lot, or I've done that wrong year after year after year, and finally realized like the stupid shit I've done over the years. And I think I've done this, but I think this is a huge thing in our game, generally speaking. We would rather argue about some black and white definition on what something is than just like take the general theme of what this, the whole point of any of these structures is like a directionally accurate like representation of what you're trying to do, right? Superstar
100%
at the other spots, and like, you wait a little bit at running back, you get the contingent value, you get the ambiguity, you get some breakouts, you get some whatever, right? You put all this shit together in a blender, and it spits out this team where you're actually getting just as much running back production as the teams who spent it, but now you have the awesome production everywhere else. So you're just beating them at every single position. But like I said, that's not a zero running back team. You took Cam Scatterbo and he's the RB21 or whatever. I'm like, fuck off, dude. Like, what a stupid thing. What a truly stupid thing for us to waste our time on. You know what I mean? It's like, so if Cam Scatterbo falls by 5 picks, it's a zero. I could take the same goddamn player and he falls by a couple picks, and it's this, like, stop. That's very, but we will definitely argue about that more than like, can I make this work? Will this work? Right. And I think, and I do think this year specifically, like you mentioned, if I had to pick an absolute favorite, it's a wide receiver in the first. Like I love Gibbs and Bijan just like everybody else does, but I don't really like the other running backs in the first round. So let's just call it Jamar Chase or Puka or whatever. Brock Bowers in the second, because I like AJ Brown. I like Drake London. They're not like total home runs. To me, I have at least some small concerns. I don't really have concerns for Brock Bowers. So give me the Brock Bowers thing. Now I can take fewer tight ends. So now I have kind of some of that flexibility. I'm actually not as strong as like an old school zero running back team is at wide receiver. Like, say then I take Zay Flowers or Chris Olave in the third round, or something like that. It's like, Jamar Chase plus Brock Bowers plus Zay Flowers is not that great at wide receiver. You know what I mean? And then I take Cam Scatterbu in the fourth, or like I said, even take another wide receiver in the fourth, but then take Bashal Tutin in the fifth, or something like that. Like a lot of those structures are what I'm really building. And oftentimes I'll have like 6 running backs through 12 rounds still. And it's like, I just didn't start, running back. I didn't start with a running back in the first 3 rounds, but I still have a bunch of running backs in the window where I want to be taking most of my running backs.
Yeah, and that makes sense because you're doing more 2 quarterback builds, which would make sense there as well, because that's where I want to be living with quarterback. Most of my quarterback picks coming in that range. So if you need to pivot there, I think that's probably sharper if you're doing 2 quarterbacks. Or if you're doing this build, then you probably would want to do 2 quarterback builds a little bit more, because otherwise you're kind of more just tacking on the third guy, and you might actually want to go back to a receiver a little bit, because if you're doing a bunch of you're skipping the receivers a lot in the kind of 8, 9, 10 range, which generally I want to do. I don't like the receivers there either. Yeah, I tend to be like kind of balanced in a lot of builds. I might have like 3 running backs and 3 receivers through 6, and then I'm like tacking on a 4th running back, usually maybe a 5th, and then grabbing my quarterbacks. But I also don't have a lot of receivers in that range. In that kind of like Sutton-y range. Just not really doing that too much.
Sutton, Michael Wilson, I'm sure I'm forgetting
Pierce,
some other names. Yeah. Alec Pierce now going there. Finally falling, by the way. It took there's like if Malik Neighbors walked out with even the slightest limp, like while we're recording this, he'd fall around by the time we were done recording it. Alec Pierce was like, we don't know if he's going to be back by the time the season gets here. He just had a pretty serious surgery, and it was like a week and a half before he even went down like at all in ADP. It was very, very, very wild. But I digress. So just while we're talking about this, because we both talked about sort of that range where like we like to take quarterbacks, because I agree. Because it is so funny. I draft more like zero running back ish starts, what people would perceive as zero running back, but I actually don't take that many wide receivers through the first like 10 rounds or something. That's sort of my pivot. It's like I'm not taking the early running backs, but I'm not taking that many wide receivers early. I'm sort of just like doubling back, and it's still hitting that quarterback window and hitting running back still in the first 10 rounds or whatever. And it's then later, because I know I like the wide receivers better, the wide receivers and the tight ends and stuff later, I'm actually doubling back. Like maybe I have 3 wide receivers through 10 rounds, but it was like an air quotes zero. It's an air quotes zero running back start, but through 10 rounds, it doesn't really feel like a zero running back team because of the lack of wide receivers.
Well, that's like, I mean, that's also a very different build than what we would have been talking about in 2022 or whatever. Like we would probably have had 5 or 6 through 8 rounds or something like that.
We would have made fun. I would have made fun of myself for drafting that back
it was
then.
4 through 7, right? It was like the golden rule and stuff. So it's like it felt more like even comfortable to get like 5 through 7, So having 3 through 10, I have a lot of builds where I have like 3 through 10. And so it's funny because I'm just like, I'll do stuff where I'll go like Justin Jefferson or Amon-Ra, CeeDee Lamb, like from that side. And then you go running back. And then I'll grab like my wide receiver 2 in the 6th, and then maybe or quarterback sometimes, and then you get, but you're just like, let's say wide receiver 2 in the 6th there, and then you get like your wide receiver. So then you have a problem because then you're like, well, my wide receiver 3, but because God, you hit that tier break. So if you have if you end up going 2 receivers through the 6th, then it's like I get to more like the worthy kind of range, and I'm like, okay, I'm back in here. I like Concepcion a lot.
Yeah.
but you're already, and then I'll do some of like Romeo Dobbs and like that, Wan'Dale Robinson and that kind of tier.
I take a lot of
But
Michael Pittman in the similar
Pittman's
range because
fine,
of the,
yeah.
because of the exact same thing. I'm like,
Jacoby Myers, I do a little love.
This sort of fits. He's been falling, which has gotten me a little bit more.
Yeah,
he's been falling, but there is sort of this chaperone-ish area, which is not something you would think from a zero running back-ish start that you would want or need. Historically, it would be like, absolutely not. I'm not taking these guys. I need upside at wide receiver if I'm adding on here, but I actually end up needing those guys. And one,
but there's just like a huge flat tier. Like I don't see a huge difference between like Sutton and Dobbs.
No,
and Sutton goes like in the 80s, and Dobbs I'm getting like 115 or something. So, it's that price. Like a lot has happened, in those 30 picks or whatever, between those two guys. So, my favorite builds right now are probably like when I'm more balanced through like 6 rounds, and then I can just like tack on that Jonathan Brooks as a 4th, and then be like done at running back, and then I can get my quarterbacks, get like decent tight end production. Sometimes I'll completely punt tight end, and so I feel strong at running back and receiver. But I'm like, my bet at running back is I spent capital at the position, so these guys have to stay healthy. Like I'm not going to be like, well, what if this guy gets hurt? Like, well, then the team's dead, buddy.
Then my other teams. That's
right.
That actually drives me nuts. If I'm being honest, another thing, just like you can't take Cam Scatterboo on him. That's not a zero running back team, dummy. Well, what the fuck is it then? Tell me. But it's that. Well, what if this guy gets hurt? It's like, well, you're drafting a bunch of teams. Then the other teams that don't have him are probably doing pretty good, right? Because he's drafted one out of 12 teams. Ken Walker, right. Whatever. It's like 1 out of 12 teams in this whole fucking tournament have Ken Walker. So guess what? If you check him on 1 out of 12 of your teams, yeah, it sucks. Guess what? That sucks for those teams. The 11 other out of 12 teams in your portfolio are in better shape. It's like that's this game. That's how this game works. It's going to work for injuries that way. It's going to work for guys like Justin Jefferson last year.
And you don't need a perfect team in this format. Like you really don't. But you do need a team that scores a lot of points 3 straight weeks, and ideally is kind of peaking in those 3 weeks, because that means you kind of don't want your players to like absolutely smash until they have to.
Isn't it?
Like
so
ideally.
Weird? Yeah, it's so weird. Like you're kind of like, be good, right?
Be good,
but like
get me through.
Like, yeah, but like let's right. Like you literally created a website called Legendary Upside talking about the legendary running backs and stuff. And it's like you kind of want them, but kind of like, can you just be Derrick Henry for me? Actually,
Derrick
like last
Henry's
year, like
great.
Yeah, like how do I get like that's it? Like when I look at Sam's winning team last year, I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. This doesn't make any sense.
Trojan horse. You want to be let through the gates, right? And no one's too worried about you.
Yep.
That's the ideal way to win this tournament, right? And then Sam bursts out and slaughters a whole town. Jesus, man.
On the back, he's hanging on the back of Derrick Henry. Like you're like a Game of Thrones.
Who let him through the pod? What are we doing here, huh?
House of the Dragon season 3 just came out. Sam's on the back of Derrick Henry like a fucking dragon. Coming through in week 17, everybody's like, how did this fucker get in here with Derrick Henry? And what did he have? George Kittle and whatever. Like, what the fuck is this team? And he's just skyrockets right to blowing fire out all over all these shitty Jonathan Taylor
shouldn't
teams.
open the gates, man. Once he got through, that's what it is. So the anyway, you don't need a perfect team. This is my point.
Yes. I do think that's we've certainly gone off the rails, but it's kind of fun because it's a good time to like think about some of these things, because the perfect team thing I think is another like really huge point that all of our like analysis and the way we think about the game is like, certainly sometimes we think about like what you just said, like, oh, like week 17, like how do I just get there with, these upside guys. I always think about like, when I think about an individual player as a pick, and why I've sort of come around to Derrick Henry it's been a slow trickle, but over the years, is like if I showed up like Sam did to week 17 with this guy and he was low owned, do I think I would be excited?
Yeah. Do you have a path?
Yeah. And I'm like, because like some of those guys is like, he's low owned, but like, so what? Like, who cares? They're like, who cares? But some of these guys
got
like
Rashad Bateman this week.
right, exactly. I'm like, every time I think about Bateman, I'm like, yeah, like I'm just gonna take one of the rookies or Tez, because like at least I could tell myself it would be fun,
Right.
But we'll do a little bit of that. But I think we still often think about the game in like how do I build the perfect team? That like, how do I like we focus on advance rate in our analysis. We focus on, and I do too, focus on like points added, like how many points is this adding to your team? How many, and like that shit matters, of course. No one is denying that it matters, but there is this just still weird thing, like you said, where it's the totally the Trojan horse thing. Like how what you want to do is build strong teams that if it doesn't go perfectly can withstand some of this, seasonal turbulence, and then just be peaking at the right time. And if given this sort of golden opportunity, like the Trojan horse thing, can thrive. You know what I mean? Like you're not, you don't want the nuts, right? It's like we think we want the nuts.
You kind of don't.
You really don't, and like, no, we don't want to set out to draft and be like, I'm going to try to draft bad players. Like, obviously that's fucking stupid. But there is this weird element of like, it's actually not about drafting the team that scores the most points, unless you're on drafters or something like that. And even those teams aren't the stone cold nuts. So it's a very weird little quirk to the game.
Yeah, I just pulled up a big dog, and it's this is a slow big dog, so I'm not completely done, but it's in the 17th round. So the draft is more or less it's effectively done. And the running back room is Christian McCaffrey, Devon Achane, Javonte Williams, RJ Harvey. And it's like, what if Javonte misses 4 games and, McCaffrey kind of muddles through a big part of the season. Achane, struggles to pop up. Right. But they like kind of do enough. And you're like, oh, yeah, this running back room is not what I thought. If I get through, great. Like if I get through, you're telling me I'm through, and then I have like McCaffrey, all these guys catch the top 2 guys catch passes, and then RJ Harvey, has some potential contingent upside late in the season, at the very least. Even if you don't believe in his ability to break out in year 2, which could also happen. And then it's like, yeah. Or like alternatively, McCaffrey misses 8 weeks and then comes back as a playoff hammer. But like I'm able to get through with the other 3 backs. Like that's not bad. If you go like early and often at running back, generally you're probably limiting the upside of what the team can do at full strength.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of teams like this, like mostly the bet at Hyperfragile is that the running back room just stays healthy and carries the room and carries the team. And then the receivers actually are the ones who like kind of you don't crush because your receiver room takes a while to get going. Like in this team, I have Travis Hunter and Omar Cooper. And like, you could see those guys taking a little bit before they're crushing. But like, I also think it could work the other way where you have a fairly balanced build, but only 4 running backs. And then your running back room is not awesome, because it's not deep. So you're kind of like, there's some turbulence you're hitting where you're like a guy's banged up or he's not scoring super well. And then when the bye weeks hit, you're really not crushing a running back. But then like one of those guys ends up being the dude you kind of need to have. And then the running back room gets kind of sorted out by the end of the year. And because you're able to stay balanced with these builds at wide receiver, the wide receivers could be really strong on Hyperfragile builds this year too. If you're going like 3 receivers through 6 rounds, like that can be a pretty damn strong wide receiver room. So anyway, I think that kind of the fundamental point I'm making is that if I am predominantly when I'm drafting early running backs, I am not taking a lot of them, like kind of 5 max typically, and usually 4, and sometimes 3. And it's like that is kind of the risk that I'm building into this team of like, all right, I'm not just trying to like score the most regular season points. I'm building a team that is like able to catch lightning in a bottle at the end of the season when like as long as these 3 to 4 running backs or 4 to 5 running backs are, do enough to get me through and then like are the dudes at the end of the year, right? The robust running back strategy has generally been like 5 early running backs, right? Or like you take 3 early running backs and then you circle back and you get those 0 running back targets and you get up to 6 or 7 running backs total. Like it's just a different thing, I think. The hyper fragile build, like all early running back builds are not made equal. And I think this year could be a pretty good year for hyper fragile. But maybe it is a better year for 0 running back than I was thinking, to your conviction point.
But I do think like another thing that I think I've just gotten better at, and what I know that you have gotten better at, and just generally speaking, is like if we're gonna be or become skilled drafters, you have to be able to draft all of these different things. And like you said, find the ways in which people are drafting early running back teams poorly. And like I mentioned, I think 0 running back can take advantage of some of the things in the market, and specifically some of the ways that the majority of our opponents are building teams, right? It's just rarer that people start through even the first 3 rounds without a running back anymore. It's just more rare, which is fine. But it is also more rare that people will build like you're talking about. There's multiple ways to exploit what our opponents are doing, and some of the not even flaws, but like potential flaws. And like I don't know if this running back pricing is wrong. Maybe they're still all too cheap. It's possible. I can't. If I knew how the season was going to play out, we wouldn't be having this fucking show, because I would just draft the winning team and move on. You know what I mean? So all I'm trying to do is spot the exploitable patterns in what my opponents are doing, marry that up with my player takes and that kind of stuff, and like draft a million fucking combinations of those two things, and roll the dice, and then we'll see how the season plays out. And like I said, if it doesn't work, I'm going to shoot for first and do the things that I think are not being done enough, right? It's like the Sims methodology in a different regard. That's what, like when I play MLB DFS, I use Sims every single day. And what they're doing is simulating the slate tonight and saying, based on our projected ownership and projected points and all that kind of stuff, here's the stuff that is underowned, overowned, appropriately owned, whatever. And I would like to play the underowned stuff, right? Because it has a higher probability of winning than it is being played. It's like really fucking basic. And like it sounds really all fancy and shit, right? Oh, the Sims, and it's like, well, what it's really doing is telling you, where the gaps in what your opponents are doing, where they lie. And it doesn't, there's a lot that goes into that. That's all we're really trying to do. And it a lot of the times it comes as it comes off as contrarian or whatever, but really all it is like I said, I'm just trying to find the same thing that you're doing with the hyper fragile stuff is like me with this like sort of sandwich build. We're actually doing the same fucking thing, but the teams look so wildly different. But the end goal is the exact same thing. You're like, okay.
Well, I'm taking running backs in the first 3 rounds as well. That would be the big difference.
Right. But the goal is you're betting on like, okay, there's this market shift. There's this thing that's going on. How do I take advantage of it and build better teams than what my opponents are doing, and in a different way than what my opponents are building, right? And so you're taking sort of a little bit more early running backs, but fewer. I'm not taking fewer running backs. I'm just taking them more in the middle. Like I said, rounds 4 through 12 or whatever is like my running back range. And to me,
the big thing too is that like, and we've talked a lot about this over the years, but like there's a big difference between best ball and redraft. And, Gretsch has written about this recently, that people are still probably underrating. And like, who has utility in best ball it's like, what's the point? Like, what's the point of this guy in redraft, but they have utility in best ball? Like, I think Javonte Williams is a pretty good example of that. Like,
totally.
Dude's got utility in best ball, man. Like, he might crap out. There's a good chance he craps out. Like, but there's like also seasons where he just doesn't. And it's kind of cheap if he doesn't crap out. Like, he's kind of cheap for the clear-cut Dallas Cowboys starting running back, offense we expect to score a lot of points. He's got really essentially no competition for rushing touchdowns. You know, he might have a little bit of competition for receiving stuff if Jaden Blue, but like Jaden Blue's like he's like recovering from like being a total asshole, basically. Like the coach like having to like sit him down and like lecture him at the end of the last season. Like, and they're like, yeah, he's doing better than that. But like, you know,
he's showing progress. They never said he's awesome. They said he's gotten better from last season.
He's gotten better since when I told him I hated him.
Since when he was wearing Gucci or whatever fucking cleats to practice and couldn't play because he got blisters on his feet from his Dolce and Gabbana, whatever fucking cleats. Like, yeah, I hope it's better.
We all know, like, if you've been playing redraft for a while, like, you've lost to the Javonte Williams team in week 4. Like, I have, you know, you're gonna again. Like, that team's probably beating you in week 4. You're like, oh shit. Like,
yeah,
you know.
The Tootin team, you feel so good about your Facial Tootin team, and you run into fucking Javonte in week 4, and Tootin plays 35% of the snaps and scores 6 points, and Javonte has 2 touchdowns. Like, it's just so obvious to see.
Yeah, and I find him an annoying click. I don't like the click, but you know, we have it. I feel confident about like not being like a big old Javonte bull, and the Sims are like, Javonte's a good click. And I think he's a good click because he allows you to do. Now, he's not like essential to your drafts, but like I think he's pretty good click where he goes in this environment, where all the other players are priced, because he allows you to do things where you stick with 4 running backs, you know. So I'm overweight Javonte. I'm not massively overweight. I'm at 14%. I wish I could tell you he was at 4%. He's like, spiritually, I want to be a Javonte fader, but it's like, hey, I might have a receiver, I might have CeeDee Lamb, and that's kind of fun actually, because now I'm betting on the Cowboys. I might stack that up with Dak. That's actually a pretty fun build. I might have, let's say, I have Justin Jefferson. Fine, you know, I can still take Javonte in the 3rd, paired with my 2nd round running back. You know, then I can grab probably another running back in the 5th. And or grab a receiver in the 4th. So, and then a running back in the 5th and a receiver in the 6th. And that's three receivers, 3 running backs through 6 rounds. And like, it's actually pretty good, because then maybe I'm only taking one more running back the whole rest of the way. And I didn't have to spend. I spent my 1st round pick on a receiver. I spent my 4th round pick on a receiver. I spent my 6th round pick on a receiver. So I'm like not crushing you at receiver, but I'm not buried either.
Right.
And that's, I don't know. There's guys like that. I mean, you have to say this for Sam. Like, Sam built a really sharp Derrick Henry team, and that helped him win. And I think being able to build, like, take a guy that you think, maybe this is just a conviction play since we haven't said one in about an hour. Being able to like build really sharp teams with like players that like, people that you are generally going against, you know, that you consider sharp drafters, like, aren't going to be taking. You know, like, I don't think I'm gonna have to go against, like, if I see Beimfohr in the final, if I see Jacob Sanderson in the final, if I see Ben Gretchen in the final, I'm pretty sure they're not gonna have Javonte Williams.
Right.
You know? Right. But I might, and you know, that could work out for me. I got to the final, so something went right. Maybe he's just the starter. Maybe it's ugly, but he's scoring a lot of touchdowns on a team that scores a lot of touchdowns, and he doesn't have any competition. And it's not like Javonte Williams, this guy used to cost like the 14th overall pick, you know, like this, like we used to take this to, like, Kenyon Drake went from the Dolphins to the Cardinals, and they're like, we're gonna use him a lot. They used him a lot in the back half of the season. They're like, yeah, we're gonna use him. And then They didn't because he's Kenyon Drake,
Kenyon
and he was like the 202 that year. You know, it's like we've done. I know that Javante's a dead zone back, but he's almost like he's kind of a dead zone back, but he's also like 3 years before that he was like he would have been the 202.
So I flag planted second round Javante and had to argue like, no, Melvin, like stop it with the Melvin Gordon stuff. Javante is awesome and he's going to take this thing over. And before he got hurt, I think it was right. He was taking over and he was fucking awesome on that Broncos team. That was with Russ and everything, if I recall.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not trying to relitigate that, but I'm saying to your point, this is a guy who is this isn't Najee Harris, who everybody
He's
was just
26.
Like, it's not a talentless guy. He was pretty
Took him
good
a little
last
while
year.
to get going after the injury again.
I think he's not Bijan
great.
Robinson, but I do think there is. Okay, here's a question.
156 rush yards over expected, dude. It's not nothing.
Would you, if Josh Jacobs was on the Cowboys, would you draft Josh Jacobs higher than Javante goes or lower than Javante?
Yeah, higher.
If they switched roles,
I think I'd draft Jacobs higher.
So you think Jacobs is a better football player than Javante is?
I think Jacobs is not dealing with this, shredded knee that made him look like absolute ass 2 years ago, and
that is fair.
Like, and then had a year that made him look like maybe he recovered from the knee, but could be noise. You know what I mean? Like, I think I'm like more confident that Jacobs is going to kind of chug along than I am with Javante, but that could be wrong because Jacobs is older.
Yeah. He was older when he came into the league, whereas Javante was very young when he came into the.
Yeah, he's 28, so he's 2 years older. He's actually like 2.5 years older because he's got a February birthday and Javante's in April. So, he could just fall off in a big way. So I don't know. I guess it would be close. It would be pretty.
But that's sort of the point, right?
Close.
Is we're already drafting Jacobs similarly in a worse situation, plus some of the other stuff that he's got.
It's an okay situation.
No, yeah, but I think we would agree that the Dallas Cowboys are, if all
I'd rather have
goes according to plan, that they're going to be better on offense. But they both sort of have this who the fuck is behind them type stuff going on. Like they're projectable workhorses, but we don't think that they're super great from a talent perspective. Otherwise,
which has historically been like the absolute peak dead zone.
right.
Yeah,
but I wonder to the best ball component is like, I don't want to, and I don't know the answer to this question. Like because the fool's gold is the Mike. I always think about Mike.
It's Davis, the Mike Davis is the fool's gold, but these guys are not Mike Davis. Like it's very clear they are not Mike Davis. Like that, and that is the thing. Like there was because Herzig won Best Ball Mania 1 with a hyperfragile build, and it became and Mike Beers had popularized it before that with like MLFL 10s and all that. Like it's a long established build with success, and it's actually performed well the last few years as well. This is not why we like it this year at Leg Up. It's because we simmed out the season and the tournament, and it's like the sidekick keeps telling us to draft hyperfragile teams, so we're like, okay. But it's forward looking, and it's like, yeah, but it has also worked in the past, which it's not like this crazy new thing we're trying. But like there was this thing of like, hey, this idea of hyperfragile works, and so let's do it with Mike Davis. Let's do it with Alexander Madison. Let's do it, with these guys where you're like, he'll be the starter. It's projection, but like, who else is going to challenge him? Like, don't worry about it. The volume is there, and like the volume is there. And I've never seen this guy in this role before, and I don't think he's very good. That's like those two things like are really dangerous to hand wave away. There are other red flags with these backs, which is that like one had a serious knee injury that he looked like terrible off of, for a couple of seasons and wasn't like amazing last year. He looked much better, but still, you've got concerns about how high the ceiling is for sure. And then Jacobs is 28 years old. He's got domestic violence accusation, like obviously lots of red flags there. These running backs crap out, he could crap out. So from a redraft perspective, I'm like, yeah, what am I bothering? Like I'll find running back 2 production elsewhere over the course of the year if I need to. And And by the way, I pick 2 starters every week. So I can go running back, skip these dudes, give me some receivers, give me a tight end or whatever. I don't have to worry about it. Like, I'm not going to like shore up my running back 3 in the first 5 rounds with a profile that doesn't have a ton of upside and has serious downside because these guys could crap out. Like, what do I gain?
Yep.
But that's a redraft question to me. In best ball, I gain the ability to not have to like lotto ticket hunt in the final rounds at running back when I don't like these lotto tickets. I have the ability to like build in more quarterback upside by going 3 quarterback in a window with a lot of really good quarterbacks. I have the ability to like lotto ticket hunt at tight end, where I actually think are some interesting guys pretty late in drafts, starting tight ends in the 170s and stuff. Cool. That could hit my, those guys hit touchdowns. They slot into my lineup. Beautiful. There's some really cool lotto tickets at receiver. I've talked endlessly about Omar Cooper being priced in the 140s, being ridiculous. This is a first round pick. Casey Concepcion's too cheap. Travis Hunter, I think, has a ton of upside, even if he ultimately is a quarterback and I get burned by that, fine. I think he's got a lot of upside. I've got the 33rd overall pick in the 160s on an awesome offense. I've got Jeremy Bernard, who's apparently like, getting moved around the formation and stuff, and could be he was a second round pick. He's available in the 180s. Like, there's lots of fun upside swings. You can do the Ravens wide receivers. There's like a lot of fun stuff actually that I can do late in drafts, and I get to do more of it than you do because I stopped taking running backs in round 9, and you're taking these like guys you don't even really believe in. Like, you really want this guy on your team
because you
want Alvin Kamara, because I don't, and I don't think you do either.
100%. You feel pressured in, right? And this is a mistake I've made in the past that I do think I've gotten better at. Like you said, you're taking Alvin Kamara. You're taking like, I'm not trying to poo-poo on any of these guys, and I have drafted some of them. Whatever. It's like you're drafting Braylon Allen. You're drafting, like even like Justice Hill. You're drafting these guys where it's like, you tell yourself the story of like, sure, this is this, and they all have stories. That's why they get drafted. But it's like you said, I don't like, I did this conversation the other day too. You mentioned the Ravens wide receivers, right? Or these rookies and whatever, where somebody like, anytime somebody brings someone up, like we used to call it like the Bateman line type stuff. It's like, there's this spot in the draft where like I sort of use that as like a marker. It's like when somebody brought up Elik Iomanor to me the other day, and I was just like, we can talk about it, that's fine, but I do this Ravens wide receiver test. I'm like, okay, potential Ravens wide receiver 2 or this guy's profile, and I'm like, so like I understand that's a kind of unfair to this guy, but like that's what I have to compare all those late picks to, is like, I know the Ravens wide receiver 2, nonetheless the Ravens wide receiver 3 is back here. I don't know who it is, but he's back here. So the opportunity cost of me taking the potential wide receiver 4 on this shit ass Cam Ward offense is the Ravens wide receiver 2, right? Or like you said, like these rookies have this upside that these other, so it's like people will ask about all these guys.
But the thing too with those Ravens receivers is that like you could be wrong, and I think this is what separates them from the running backs to a degree, is like you can be wrong about, hey, I think the wide receiver 2 is Jacoby Lane. Like, he was drafted ahead of Sherratt, and I think he's good. They're actually talking about moving him around a little bit, doing some interesting stuff with him, not just the red zone role, but like also, hey, red zone role sounds pretty good in the 18th round. That could work. But why are we against red zone role? Like, we've
gone full circle. Like, fuck those touchdowns, dude. Fuck the touchdown. Give me the 3-yard get Malik Washington catches. I don't want the fucking touchdowns on the team that's going to score.
Isaac Tesla went 50 picks ago. Don't tell me you don't like red zone roll. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. You like, speaking of, sorry to interrupt, but you mentioned the like, this guy could turn like the Mike Davis thing, like bad players who we're projecting volume onto is like really fucking risky. And it's like, that's the Isaac Tesla to me, is like, I understand. I don't know how it could go bad, because I also don't think like Dominic Lovett is going to take his job or whatever. But like, That's the point. None of us knew how it would go bad for Mike Davis, and the next thing you know, he's fucking splitting carries with some dude who's not in the league in 2 years, because he's just, when you're not good enough, you're not good enough. Like, it doesn't really matter what the alternative is.
100%. But I think with like Lane, and I actually prefer Surratt, but I wanted to just make that case because I think it's fun. But like, and I do take Lane too, because I don't know either, man. I don't know who the wide receiver 2 is, but I might get the wide receiver 3. And guess what? This isn't running back. I don't have, if I get the RB3 in Indy, like, come on. That's what, I have nothing. But if I get the wide receiver 3 on the Ravens in the 18th round, that could be something, So I think those guys, like those 2 rookies, especially Tez Walker, you could definitely make a case for. Rashad Bateman, I mean, has probably the best chance to be the wide receiver 2 there, although it's not that fun. But on DraftKings, I've taken them occasionally. Like but you like Bateman, probably like the floor is just lower. They just be like, yeah, we're done with this dude. But those rookies, like, you don't even need to win. Like, you're like, I think this guy could be the wide receiver 2. It's like, I was wrong, and he won me $1 million.
The crazy thing is, like you said, they could be the wide receiver 4. Jacoby Lane starts the season as a wide receiver 4 in week 1. If you need Jacoby Lane in week 1 on your best ball team, I got something to tell you. You were
what build is Jacoby Lane dependent in week 1?
Exactly.
Don't do it.
So if we're worried about that, then you fucked something else up a long time ago in your draft. Right?
I bet you have a unique team though. I bet those combos are unique as hell.
Super. I love it. I love a unique combo, but I think we'll stop the train on the uniqueness at I need Jacoby Lane to score 15 points. As
long as Jacoby Lane hits 20 in week 1, I'm good.
Exactly. So you could get the Ravens wide receiver 4 in week 1, and again, chaos plays out. They say Bateman and Tez, you guys are the starters in week 1, and maybe neither of them are good enough. Maybe the rookie comes on down the stretch. Like Amon-Ra St. Brown has been a first-round pick for years and was doing effectively nothing for 3/4 of his rookie season, and then straight broke fantasy down the stretch. Now he got on the field and all that, but you know what I mean.
Also, he's Amon-Ra. It's a good outcome.
But he was a 4th-round pick as a rookie.
Yeah, it's true.
Then the Lions were not that exciting. That was sort of the beginning of the evolution of the Lions. But it was like, oh, you have Amon-Ra, that's like fine. You could dream about, he's a rookie on the line. This is kind of cool, but we didn't know what was coming. And it was ever since then, it's been, okay, this guy's a superstar. And so you can win in a multitude of ways. Injury, they come on, the rookie comes on strong later down the season. The veteran just falls off, right? The veteran gets the first stop. Rashad Bateman gets the opportunity, and they're finally just like, yep, he's still Rashad Bateman. Spoiler. Let's try something else here. Like there's a bunch of different ways. But if you get the RB3, right? If you draft Seth McGowan and you get the Colts RB3, it's just over.
It's over. What's the point?
There's okay, so you get 2 injuries, and now you have Seth McGowan on the Colts without Jonathan Taylor and Daniel Jones off of Achilles. You know what I mean? Like, it's just over. So,
and I'm pretty sure, I can do, if I look, like, again, just to get to the utility of these guys and being able to build sharp teams with players that are generally like gross people out. It's like, hey, I have a Josh Jacobs in the 4th round on this team. What's the point? Well, the point is that he outscored your DeMond Claiborne by like about 250 points. And I used the pick that you took Claiborne to like take my tight end 2 as part of a punt tight end strategy where I took 4 tight ends to close out, and my receivers I actually outscored you at receiver, even though I spent a 4th round pick on a running back and you punted running back a little bit more. Like there's like a lot you can, like, if you think about it from a build perspective, obviously these later round picks are all lower value picks, but like you can do some cool things, like with tight end, you can do some cool stuff where you take like a Brock Bowers and 2 or even 3 other tight ends because you only have 4 running backs. That's weird as shit. Who's going to do that? Well, what if Bowers doesn't do anything in week 15 or 16? What if he straight up misses the game? Awesome if I have 3 other tight ends and I made a bet that these running backs stay healthy and just chug along, do their thing, score enough points. I'm good at running back. How do I win the whole thing? I have a low on Bowers in week 17. That could help. That could be cool. So you can just, it's like, it's a build. It's not the only build I'm doing, but I think there's like a lot of cool stuff you can do with it. And it's probably a build I do less of as time goes on, because I'm not going to make fun of Damon Claiborne if he emerges as the clear, as actually having a role. Then I'm going to be like, oh no, he's a great pick. I got to take some Damon Claiborne. So, but I don't know who, like, I'm betting that it's not Claiborne, and I'm betting that it's not a lot of these guys. Some of them I'll be wrong on. I'll just find out later who I was wrong on, and I'm going to be wrong on a small part of the group and right on a large, because, you know, every year, most of these guys are nothing. Some of them are something. My hope is that the some who are something are mostly undrafted right now. Wouldn't that be delightful for me? It's like, yeah, there were like 3 dudes. They were all awesome picks. They were completely undrafted in June. Like, that's the nuts for me, you know? And then I find those guys in August, along with everyone else. It's not like it's only me then, but like in August, I'm like, oh my God, yeah, we have to draft this guy. He's actually kind of a smash. It could be like Robert Henry. Like, Robert Henry might be an awesome pick. They've mentioned his name. They're talking about the running back room. They said Robert Henry. Like, I don't know. It's not insane that Robert Henry could be. We've seen UDFAs contribute before. You know, the backfield's wide open. Like, what if Robert Henry matters? I'm not going to draft Robert Henry until I'm absolutely sure he does. but or pretty sure anyway. And I'm pretty sure he definitely does it now.
Cash the fucking 10,000 to 1 ticket on a Robert Henry mention on this podcast.
But I mean, seriously, like, there's somebody who just doesn't really get drafted that we're all going to be drafting in August.
Yep.
And I don't, rather than like hunt for that person now, I'd rather just bet that like the hunters fail, like, or that they find him, and that the advance rate on that player actually ends up being pretty low, because like that guy gets paired with Damon Claiborne. Has got no shot at doing anything.
Yep.
I'm actually now trying to reverse jinx Damon Claiborne into being something.
Exactly. But that is like, it is so funny, because a guy can at this moment be someone you're like, I'm not drafting that guy, but there is a scenario
out of him later
in which he becomes an absolute stone cold smash. I look back on this is another. This is what we do, right? We get on these side tangents, but it's
remember when we thought we were going to draft today?
I know we were supposed to do some drafting, and maybe we will, maybe we won't. I don't know.
We won't. I've got a hard out in 20 minutes.
But beautiful. But so this is our convictions about best ball. I don't know. We'll come up with the title. This has happened like repeatedly, what you just outlined, and I think we have to like sort of remember that at this time of year. It's why we're both effectively doing the same thing, just in slightly different ways. Like I said, I'm like sandwiching my running backs, and you're taking your kind of 4, and we're just. Like
but it's not. I'm also doing some of the builds that you're talking.
Right.
Basically,
sure.
I think
and I do. And I do the same thing as you sometimes too.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Just like a higher volume. Like I would say, like
meaning.
Right, right, not in best ball meaning. If you, I will say it is trigger. This experiment was a poor idea, because I often draft while I do other stuff or multi-table or whatever, and I cannot do that. Like, I'm like committed to this 100. Like, you know, if I time out, because I just have my regular rankings in there, because I do other tournaments where I do draft early running backs, right? And so like I can't just like cook dinner and draft the BBM team. Like, I have to be fucking locked in and paying attention, or go in and like sometimes I'll draft while I walk the dogs, and I'll enter the BBM draft, right? It finishes, you know, starting in 30 seconds or whatever. And I star all the first like 30 running backs, or excuse me, 30 wide receivers, just in case like I lose. There's spots in my neighborhood.
I love the idea of like Jeremiah Love falling to like the 403 like and like you time out onto him and you're like, oh no.
I'm mad.
You're mad.
This is the guy who said the zero running back.
I guess that would be fine though, because that would technically be 3X receiver. You'd be okay if Love falls to the 4th.
See, it's so funny because you mentioned Javonte. Like, I have Javante teams. I have Kerrane teams. I have Brees teams where you just get, not anymore with Brees, but you just get into the right room, where like I just drafted Kerrane at like pick 43 or something like that, earlier today. And it's like, I don't really like this guy and it doesn't fit this bullshit rule that I've decided for myself. But
is this a religion? Is that what you did? You start football religion?
This is my twin flame.
This is my twin flame.
Zero running back twin flames on Underdog. But no, I don't even know where this started. But that's where. but that's it. It has definitely called. This is why I draft the Ray Davis, who I call the mental health hack, because it's very mentally draining and taxing to go through the BBM experiment where I'm literally like wigging out about like making sure I don't get, it's like basically through Brees or whatever. I have to like, I do not time out. Please don't time out. But just some similar like sort of conviction type things. The Ravens were definitely one of them. And like I said, I have some of those at this time of year that I go heavier on than I will later, because like you said, I think some stuff is going to pop up later that I'm just completely unaware of now. And I think back to like Jordan Mason, even Chris Rodriguez last year went from like, why the fuck would anyone ever draft Chris Rodriguez to, oh, he's going to play. Like this dude's going to play, for Washington, whatever. And the Jordan Mason thing was like, I don't know who Christian McCaffrey's backup is. All summer we didn't know. And then it was like August comes around and you're like, oh
yeah, it's Mason.
Mason. Like we need to take him on. And like CMC's still not practicing. You're like, we should probably do this. And at that point, you didn't care whether you got him in the 18th round or the 13th round. Yeah. Like it really
this was
matter.
Kerrane too. Kerrane.
Yeah.
Kerrane and I got him in the 18th round. I took Sean Tucker ahead of Kerrane on the team that made the finals that year. I took Tucker first, and then I circled back and got Kerrane. And I know I wanted, because I had a lot of Kerrane in that final period, and I was taking a lot. But it's like hilarious to me. I'm like, you couldn't have just reached for Kerrane by one round. You have to take Sean Tucker, UDFA, who like didn't do anything that year, and he's a good player. It was something to it.
It doesn't sound bad now, but you don't realize.
It doesn't sound bad now. It was worse. It was worse then.
this was UDFA. Sean Tucker, like before he did anything.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you should arguably you should be even more comfortable reaching than sometimes I have been, where you're like, why was I anchored to anything with Kerrane? I should have been taking him in the 14th of anything. So, there's guys like that, and I think that's just like being aggressive on those guys is a pretty big edge. I mean, JCM ultimately like helped teams if you got him cheap enough.
Totally. Totally.
So, it was, if you waited and made sure, and then you had to pay for it, then he was too expensive by the end. But
but that was, he started rising quick. Yeah, he started rising rightfully when the steam started. That was pre-Brian Robinson trade. Then Brian Robinson got traded, and that's when it got out of control.
Yeah, right.
Like you said, like up to like the 8th round or something, which again, it's like not that big of a deal, but it was like, again, whether you got him in the 18th round at the very beginning or you chase the steam up to the 13th round or whatever, it was fine. It was totally fine. He was helpful, and I think on all of those teams.
Your Ravens rule is a pretty good one for that. Like, you're like, hey, is this running back a better pick than these rookie receivers for the Ravens, who could be nothing? It could be Tez Walker and Bateman with Flowers all year, and like neither guy really matters, or they do kind of do something, but not really that much.
Yeah.
When do we get to a point where like this guy has enough upside to where it's worth it, and the downside doesn't look so bad? We're getting close to there with like Marshawn Lloyd. I think we're getting close to there with Jaden Blue. We're getting close to there with Jordan James. Like, there's some guys that are kind of bubbling. I'd like a little bit more confirmation, but I'm like pretty close on those three to being like, let's do this. Like these guys might really matter this year. And I'm not quite there yet, but if you're there ahead of me, like I wouldn't fault you, In fact, like maybe I'm not following my own advice to a degree on those guys. I think I just want a little more confirmation, and it's, I mean, this is hard. Like, we are a long way from the JCM drumbeat. We're a long way from like the Kerrane drumbeat on those types of guys. But like, I'm more kind of like getting my watch list together of those types of players that I'm gonna be like, when it's time to move on them, like move quick, and then like not be thinking so much like, well, what if this play doesn't work? It's like, it doesn't need to definitely work. It just needs to be a better bet than the other 18th round picks, and not completely speculative. Like, not just like, hey, I hope, like, we drafted Chris Evans like at a high rate when he wasn't the RB2 on the Bengals. It was behind Joe Mixon. And so it was a contingent base bet. And Chris Evans had a high yards per route run as a rookie on a very small sample, and was like a semi-intriguing prospect. And we drafted him, and we were excited about it, and it felt fun. And then I remember Gretsch wrote like late in the summer, and then like for the main event that we did, he's like, Samaje Piron's like clearly the RB2, guys. Like, what are you doing? And we like took Pirine, I think, on our, I don't know if we actually ever did, but he told us to take him on a main event. Sorry if we didn't, Gretsch. And Chris Evans was a horrendous pick. Like, he was
out of the league the next year.
Yeah, like he just
like literally
didn't
a year
play. Yeah, so there's been a lot of those types of guys, a lot of rookies like that. Jarquez Hunter, who I was taking last year, which was dumb. Like, he wasn't the number 2 guy.
He's gonna spoil
never really was.
I'm starting to hammer Blake Corum, and it's just gonna be the worst kind of poetic justice ever when Jarquez.
If it's Hunter,
I'm gonna be so mad. But anyway,
yeah, Hunter and DJ Giddens, like Giddens, we actually had some indication was the RB2, but it wasn't clear cut, and it probably needed to be behind Taylor, but whatever. Jarquez Hunter was worse, because like it was just like a speculative, he might be the RB2. Turns out he's not. Oops, 0. And so like, I do think you look at like the advance rates and stuff for those types of picks, you think that they wouldn't be so bad. They're not good. It's not helpful. So I do, I kind of want to like, it's like, don't fire to see the whites of their eyes kind of thing. But like, when you do see the whites, you're, oh no, you're at war, buddy.
Like that.
I'm
in the midst of watching
at that point.
Well, on Netflix, they have all the presidential documentaries on there now of like Washington and Jefferson, and I'm making my way through all of those because I'm a nerd and I like the historical stuff. And so it's very funny that you say that, because that's literally, I mean, it's not the reference that you were giving, but that's all I've been watching for like 2 weeks. It's like all these World War I, Civil War, different stuff.
It's revolutionary though. They said that, right? It's
right.
Musket technology.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Got to get close.
But it's, and again, that is something that I think we as a whole market have gotten better about. The whole speculative thing. We were like truly fucking batshit crazy with it 5 years ago or whatever. Like you said, we would do Chris Evans. I did Evan Hull. I'm sure there's
I did Evan Hull too.
Of a lot of these guys.
Darrington Evans.
I will. There's Darrington got hurt in the preseason, and he was the second back into the preseason game that I'll never forget. I was sitting at this desk, and there's a TV right here for people that don't know.
Deontay Foreman would like a word.
Darrington Evans comes in the game because that was my guy that year, right?
I know.
And he comes into the game, and the first
you got me on him.
He's fucking electric. He's fucking electric. Dude, I never, and this is like the very beginning of Spike Week, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And like, it's like someone died. Like, my phone is just nonstop. And I'm like fucking victory lapping around two preseason touches or whatever, because he started the game, because they're
yeah. I mean, that is awesome. Yeah, that's fun.
That's also like the fun of, there's some conviction. It is fun. Like, some of the speculative stuff is a little bit fun, but I think we can do it in smart ways where it's like you can kind of have your cake and eat it too in these instances. You know what I mean? Like, nothing is without risk, especially cheaper, like,
of course,
fantasy assets. but you can wait and still pounce on these situations. And then there are some that are clear cut. They're generally not, 18th or 20th round picks. And so like you almost get this like natural diversification of your portfolio just by sort of like going with the ebbs and flows of the offseason. You know what I mean? Where it's like,
Yeah.
okay, right now, right? The whole, again, my Ravens rule. It's like right now, when I match these guys up to the late Ravens wide receivers, like nothing matches them. But soon, we're probably, whoever are the winning Ravens cheap wide receivers are probably going to move up. And then some other guys are going to emerge. And now I'm not comparing to those Ravens guys anymore, right? And then there are going to be backs that I can pounce on. The next Jordan Mason, the next Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, the next whoever that comes up, and it's like, okay, now for this week or these 2 weeks, it's that fucking guy. At the end of all of these different drafts, and it's
I
like
think it's okay.
You're not doing anything crazy. You're just riding the wave of the offseason.
You're riding the wave, and as long as like, I think it's okay to be like, hey, I pretty sure this guy is a good pick now. I'm going to start taking him and then be like, oh, he's not. And then stop taking him, right? Like you're not going to be perfect with it. And there are guys who've been like absolute busts. So I think like ultimately, like fair enough. Like Kamani Vidal was ultimately went down as like a really bad pick, but was.
This is 2 years ago for everyone.
This is 2 years ago.
His rookie year.
As a rookie. But was probably a pretty good process pick given how wide open J.K. Dobbins ends up being the hit that year instead.
It was Dobbins and Gus Edwards, and we were speculating that Vidal would be able to have a shot to
Dobbins was like coming off all the injuries, and it's like, dude, and he had a like pretty serious injury with like the timeline was like, is he seriously going to be able to do what he did? And then he did. But Vidal, and we learned in the second year can actually play at least a little bit. And so like, it's just like, didn't work. The same process that gets you on Vidal probably gets you on a Bucky Irving. Like it's not the worst thing to take a stab on a guy like that. He is, though, he is a reminder that day 3 running backs are low probability bets to contribute early in their career, as rookies and stuff. And that like, I think Jaden Blue, who went like 30 picks earlier, was a pretty horrendous pick because he wasn't, I mean, I guess it was wide open there, but he's not like the type of back who you would expect to like take over.
You mean the guy who was the RB3 on his own college team?
That is what I mean. Yeah.
Some pretty big speculation about his ability to overcome NFL football players. No, I agree. I guess someone might ask, because this is a genuine thing I think everybody struggles with, is like you have these right. The reason why you got on Bucky is he's a rookie with an intriguing prospect profile, albeit flawed. And round 4, he won the 4th round.
Round 4
of the draft. And so like, okay, draft capital not ideal, right?
Round 4 is better than like round 5 for running backs. I mean, round 5 it does get pretty sketchy, especially early career stuff.
But it's he has flaws in his profile. But so there's reasons somewhat to draft him from a talent and draft capital perspective for sure. But ultimately it was that, and then you say, and Rachaad White stinks. Right? It's always the like, but this guy stinks. And so like someone might ask, like, to what end do we sink our teeth into that type of a situation? And obviously everything is like sort of, it depends, and we got to evaluate each player in and of itself. But sometimes
Jonah Coleman would be an example of this for me. We're like, I'm not really drafting Jonah Coleman right now.
Yeah.
But if you tell me that I'm going to have a bag of Jonah Coleman in a month and a half, I would believe you. Right? It would have, but he would have to make noise and have a pretty clear role, or he would have to fall. And it's just like Jonah Coleman's basically free because he's not really free right now.
His price is wildly confusing to me.
I think he's a little overpriced. He's at 152, and there's not been a lot of noise that he'll have much of a role this year. And he's a day 3 guy. It wouldn't be surprising if he basically didn't do much this year, even if he ends up being good later. So I think he's overpriced, but it's hard to see this price like exactly holding. Like we either
get there and they're like, yeah, he's obviously behind Dobbins and Harvey, or oh, he's going to be in the mix, in which case he goes up with the
in which case he'd probably go up. And then I'd probably get on board if he had enough news. I mean, sometimes things are irrational, but I can see myself being like, yeah, fine. You know, 12th round Coleman, 11th round Coleman is making noise in camp. He's a pretty interesting prospect. I was thinking he might be a day 2 guy. He falls. He's sort of a lower upside kind of as far as explosiveness goes, but he could like be a reasonably high upside fantasy player because he can catch the ball a bit. He can be used at the goal line. So like, all right, like if he's gonna be pushing he's pushing Harvey right now. Like, okay, yeah, like I'm in. Or it's like, no, it's pretty much these other 2 guys, but he's locked in for the 3rd guy. Expect him to be active on game days. They like him on, special teams or whatever. He's a gunner. I don't think he's returning, but maybe I bet he could tackle people.
I don't think he could get down there fast enough.
That's bearish. That's pretty bearish.
I should have included him. I did a show this morning, and the first 3 running backs I drafted were Cam Scatterboot, David Montgomery, and somebody else. And I should have added Coleman on because I said, who should I
What a zero running back, bro, you are.
Exactly.
Cam Scatterboot, David Montgomery.
I said
volume-based work.
I was asking the chat, who should I draft to create the slowest NFL relay of all time? Scat, David Montgomery, and I can forget who the 3rd guy was.
Coleman,
and I was like, damn it, it was Jonah Coleman. I said Samaje Perine, which is kind of funny because when you started to describe like how he, like a young Samaje Perine was actually like, if he was on the field getting touches, was like actually really valuable. It's like, that's kind of him. What you're sort of hoping for is he's like this young version of Samaje Perine who's like trustworthy and reliable and can catch passes and do short yardage stuff. And like, yeah, if we get that, you're like, yeah, why can't I take that at pick 130 or whatever? Like, what's the difference between that and all the other backs that go there?
Yeah, and I think if you told me that like Coleman is kind of like where Nick Singleton goes, I'd be pretty into that, but he's in the 190s.
Right.
But I'm like, or Katron Allen. Well, I'm taking some Katron Allen. He's at pick 200. I don't have like a giant bag because he's a 6th round pick who might not matter. Might get passed by Robert Henry. But
Dude, I don't know what the ticket was on the double dong Robert Henry.
But yeah, I mean, I'm at like 5% Allen, like for 200 pick plus. That's not nothing. So if Coleman were down there, I'd be pretty into Coleman at those price, like even close to that, like 180 or whatever. I'd probably have a pretty good amount. So if he falls, and it's like, because Coleman has the receiving ability, and it probably more of in a dump off way, but he can get moving as a receiver. And then, he's big, so he can be used to the goal line and stuff. So I think he's got double contingent value, where if like Harvey were to miss time, he'd probably have a role. If Dobbins missed time, he definitely would have a role, I think. So, and it's a good offense. Like we talked about earlier, like, man, some of these contingent bets are in like the worst offenses in the league. Like the ones I actually know about. Like, yeah, I know Tyler Algier is the number 2, but like for the Cardinals, like, come on, it sucks. And the guy ahead of him is awesome. Like it's a pure contingent.
And they still have fucking James Conner on the team, which is like really goddamn annoying. I'm like, I would like for my contingent bet to have the guy go down and not have James Conner there to take stuff from him.
100%. So yeah. So anyway, so Coleman could be one of these guys for sure. Like I don't want to get too, like, you have to sometimes just like wade into the uncertainty of it and be like, I'm comfortable with this uncertainty because there is clearly enough upside, and it's always going to be a little bit situation to situation. But there are lessons to be learned from looking back at some of these running backs where you're like, oh yeah, like guy was just a 5th or 6th round pick, and there was never really any indications he'd play at all, and we just decided he would, and so he actually crushed teams that year, and sometimes you get unlucky, and the guy like Trey Benson was a good ass pick actually, and then he got hurt. That sucks.
Yeah, right. And I think that's to sort of and I mean this seriously because we do have to go, and it's about to storm like a mother here. It's easy to learn lessons from the results that did play out, right? What won, and how, this is an early running back year, and this guy was a smash pick, and it's obviously true, but it's easy to learn lessons from that. But like you said, like I think about last year a lot in that regard, where it's like, what would have happened if Malik Neighbors stayed healthy or Cam Scatterbo stayed healthy? And like, what does that mean for Jackson Dart? What does that mean for roster construction? What happens? Yeah, what happens if either one of James Conner or Trey Benson themselves would have stayed healthy? You know what I mean? With the Cardinals throwing 50 times a game down the stretch, like, is James Conner like the best fucking pick on the board at that point? Like, I don't know. What does that mean for Michael Wilson? What does that mean? You know, it's the butterfly effect type stuff. But I think you'll find, if you like go back and actually comb through it all, some really good lessons from within there. And it's not always the like, well, yeah, like obviously Kerrane, you know, we learned a lot from Kerrane. Like that's what we tend to learn, but we often overlearn from the like big hits, right?
From the big hits, yeah.
It's like, well, who's this year's Kerrane? It's like fucking no one. That's the point. You know what I mean? Stop chasing Kerrane Williams because he's sort of a unicorn.
Right.
You know, we haven't seen another Kerrane really, you know, like Bucky is sort of the closest thing to Kerrane, and it wasn't. He wasn't what Kerrane has become. So I think there's a lot of stuff. I think we're getting better at it. And I think kind of what we've been hitting on with like the late round picks and sort of the uncertainty and stuff is a one the market's overall gotten better at. But I think specifically like our little bubble has definitely gotten better at, because we, like you said, we used to be like, Samaje Perine sucks, Chris Evans. Then we talk ourselves into Chris Evans.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's like, dude, Perine's the backup. Like there's also,
and you don't have to take Perine either, right? We don't have to. You can have takes on all this, or you can just say, I don't have a take on it. But you also don't have to act on every single fucking situation.
I would say by the end of the season, like we should have been taking a lot more Perine. He ended up being a good, like a pretty good pick that year, and just betting on, hey, this guy's the RB2. No one's really been drafting him. Like that can have a lot of value actually in these, you know, you show up to a pod, the guy was a hit in the 18th round.
No one else has him. Perine again this year if we get through camp again, and it's like, you know, I agree with you. But at like, if we're doing the like early season stuff, like waiting for news, you don't have to pound like we all have
you'd be nice
on
to
every
know
single
for sure.
situation, but you don't have to. That's sort of the thing, is like I have takes, you have takes, we all have takes, you know. But like admitting when we don't know is like just as powerful as you know, coming to the table with a strong stance.
We probably have gotten better too, because one comparison that's actually just jumping out to me now is I'm looking at, so Trey Sermon was drafted with an ADP of 73. Had a 9% advance rate in 2021. You know, was just the wrong back. Eli Mitchell was the right back. Mm-hmm. So Caleb Johnson last year was, you know, pick 76, had a 9% advance rate. Very, you know, just a similar swing and a miss. Back in 2022, Trey Sermon was still, you know, he wasn't like being drafted a ton, but he was still getting drafted. And, you know, that was not good. He was 27% drafted, ADP of 199. So, you know, he's a final round dart thrower, but he was 27% drafted. Eli Mitchell that year sprained his MCL. So it's like, dude, Sermon, like what happened? Like, I know, dude, Mitchell was a 6th round pick. He's hurt, gets hurt a lot. Like, why can't Sermon be the Kerrane Williams who hasn't even existed yet? This, you know, we're waiting 2 more years for Kerrane Williams is still at Notre Dame at this time, but I think, or was he rookie? I don't know. It doesn't matter. Anyway, he hasn't broken out. So the only issue with this is that Sermon was cut. Sermon didn't make the final roster, and then they traded for McCaffrey. Mm-hmm. So you know, I don't think we're not really drafting Caleb Johnson. So I think in that sense, you know, you would say we've gotten a little bit better. There's like less like blind. It's just not a format where like blindly envisioning the ceiling is at a low floor, in a low floor situation, which is like, hey, I don't know if this guy's the RB2 or will get cut. Like that's a problem for you if he gets cut. Like it's not the biggest problem, but it's not good. Right. So we probably have gotten a little bit better about that, but I think we still, you know, you want to continue to like keep that in mind of like, I can't just envision like, oh, this guy could be anything, you know, like I'm willing to take on the risk because what if, like, okay, at a certain point that becomes a good bet, but you have to like get to where the bottom doesn't fall out like the vast majority of the time. And yeah, I just think like there's not that many guys where I feel confident about that yet. I'm excited for a month from now. We're gonna start to get reports on these guys. That's like, hey, this is a dude that at worst, will probably have a little bit of a role this year, and at best might be a smash. So it's time to, man up and start taking these guys, right? Get a little confidence.
I, earlier talked about how I think we need to like try and swing. And I think I've always known that, but I did sort of what you just talked about, like for the first several years where I brought the redraft brain over and I said, dude, swing for home runs, swing for the upside.
Yeah.
Let me like speculate on
matters.
Talent. Nothing else matters. Swing, right? And you just strike out so many times that even the times when you make contact, something else goes wrong. Right. You still hit a line drive, but the guy makes a diving catch on that time. And so I think you can swing for upside in different ways than just wild speculation on these, like totally. You said, crazy upside type profiles. And there's going to be plenty of time for that. And we'll have the information soon enough here, and we won't have all the information, but we'll have a whole lot more actionable information, like you said, in a month and a half than we do right now. We didn't know about almost all these league winners that we talked about. Some you could argue we should have, but for the most part, how were we supposed to know about Jordan Mason? How were we supposed to know about not that he was a league winner, but we didn't know that Kyle Manungai was like the 1B back in Chicago last year, nor should we have ever speculated on that in June of last year. But you find out these things.
Yeah, Manungai's a good shout, because he's a 7th round pick. He was not a good pick in June. He was a pretty good pick in August. And like, no one's like, oh, how are we going to find the next Kyle Manungai? But you probably do want to find the next Kyle Manungai. But you just don't want to like, but I think if you're trying to find the next Kyle Manungai, it's actually easier to be like, yeah, I'm not going to look for that guy in June. Yeah. I'm going to like, because Kyle Manungai is such a more realistic outcome for who we end up finding this year. We probably will find a Kyle Manungai, but if you don't find Kyle Manungai, you'll be okay. And if looking for Kyle Manungai ruins like 25 otherwise, interesting teams because you didn't just look once, you looked like 3 times, and you went 0 for 3. The other last thing, just real quick, final conviction: JJ McCarthy sucks. He sucks so bad, and I don't need any more information. I've got all the information I'll ever need on JJ McCarthy. Ideally, I will get no more information. I don't ever want to have to watch JJ McCarthy play NFL football again. I want to be able to because listen, I can read Nathan Yonke on the preseason stuff. I don't need to watch him go. Vikings preseason, McCarthy comes in. It's time for me to do something else. I've got other stuff to do tonight. I don't need to watch this. I would love to receive 0 more optical information about JJ McCarthy. I feel convicted that dude sucks and that he was a gigantic drag on the Vikings offense last year. And that, the Vikings are good picks, and that frankly, provided we get training camp information, even DeMond Claiborne could be a good pick this year, because that's how bad JJ McCarthy was dragging down this roster and making the Vikings look worse than they actually are.
I love it. It's similar to the Jaden Blue stuff we talked about earlier, where damning with faint praise, or whatever the saying is. They're talking about him and they're trying to make it sound really positive. And they're like, well, he's learned how to not throw every pass 1,000 miles an hour.
Also, no, he hasn't. Like, shut up. He hasn't.
The clips that they're showing, he's still throwing fucking piss missiles on every single one of them. I'm like, are those throws that aren't piss missiles in the room with us somewhere? Because like every clip you show, it's still the same JJ McCarthy, and he's like playing catch with the 7th wide receiver or whatever. I'm like, you guys are like trying to make this positive because that's what teams do, right? But it sounds like the Jaden Blue thing, like, well, he's not as big of an asshole as he was last year, so he's we're really happy about that. It's
that, like, I actually believe. I think it's much more likely that Jaden Blue is like putting in the work than JJ McCarthy fundamentally changed the way he approaches firing every ball like he's trying to hit 100 miles an hour?
Did you see his bullshit every the 9 stuff, and the like being a psychopath
once he's hyped up, dude. Once the bullets are flying and he's running away from a defensive end, and he's winding up, you think he's gonna be like, and a little touch. Like he's gonna fire it, dude. You know it.
The true colors come out when you're, like you said, when you're in the trenches. Like you said, when the bullets are flying. More a Revolutionary War analogies. Like the people who run are the guys who were fucking scared, right? You ran because you were. It came out like, I don't want to die. I'm running from this shit. I'm not standing and fighting for whatever for Ulysses S. Grant. Fuck that dude.
Are you calling JJ McCarthy a deserter?
Yeah, he's a goddamn deserter. Is what he is.
Shots fired.
Yeah, no, but I thought that just reading the JJ McCarthy stuff is so funny. It reminded me of the Jaden Blue thing. My last conviction, fairly straightforward. We're gonna look back and Rashee Rice and Malik Neighbors as NFL talents going at the prices that they've been going at this summer, and we're gonna feel very foolish. I don't really know what that means, but we're gonna feel very foolish in one manner or another. That could be very chaotic, obviously, but the prices are wrong. I can't tell you exactly what they're wrong about. I'm betting that we're wrong, that these guys are still stars. And even if it's late season for someone like Malik Neighbors, I'll fucking figure it out. Like, it's one of those, like, dude, if Malik Neighbors is fine in the late season and you show up with, you want this running back stuff. You want to get those early running backs. You want Brock Bowers. You want to still have another good wide receiver alongside Malik fucking Neighbors, and you show up to week 17 and you have Malik Neighbors on your team as your wide receiver 2 or 3, or your wide receiver 1 alongside fucking Jahmyr Gibbs and like Derrick Henry or whatever. Like, do you think that sounds like a team that could win you $1 million? Like, aren't you worried about his knee? Of fucking course, dude. That's why he's going in the 40s or whatever now. You know what I mean? Like Rashee Rice. Aren't you worried he's going to get arrested again? Sure. He's an NFL player. I'm worried they're all going to get arrested. Like, that's just welcome to fantasy
football. At least he knows whether or not he has arrest warrants out,
That is true.
You want them to at least be aware.
Like, Josh Jacobs has been in trouble. Geno's in trouble now. Like, it's only a matter of time before Tyreek does something stupid again. Like, it's what these guys do. And guys get hurt. There's guys that are hurt right now that we didn't know Alec Pierce was fucking hurt, and we weren't worried about him. We're micro-analyzing Malik Neighbors running the fucking bases at a celebrity slow pitch softball game, as if him playing in the slow pitch softball game isn't a bullish thing. Like, his doctors obviously let him go out there, and we're like, this is so bearish. Look at his gait. Look at this guy's gait after he hit a fucking home run in a softball game. Like, these guys are opportunities that we don't really generally see in best ball. They could fail, but again, I'm happy to just.
I'm more in on Rice right now, but I mean, Neighbors is definitely a guy that I could see myself. I'm actually hoping Neighbors gets cheaper. A lot of times when it becomes clear a guy's going to miss time, and I think he probably does miss time to start the year, they fall and people panic. And you get the August drafters, because you always have the element of like people coming in and catching up on the ADPs, and they're like, wait. Like, Malik Neighbors isn't going to play, and I'm supposed to take him at the 3-4 turn. Like, nah, dude, I'm not doing that. You take him.
Right.
And so I could see him falling in August.
Every tout is he's the worst pick on the board. Yeah, you can't take this guy. He's not going to play week 1. Is he ever going to?
Yeah, for like most likely outcome, like kind of like all I care about is being able to like point to stuff next year on Twitter. Like, I was the guy who said, and like if you're catastrophically wrong, you just won't bring it up. Exactly. and you don't actually have skin in the game. Like that kind of person is going to be pretty most of the time. I mean, maybe Neighbors stuff turns around and it looks really good, which would be great. But I think in a lot of cases that's not the way things head, and he does start on PUP or something. He's going to be there's no way you take Malik Neighbors in the 4th. He's going to start on PUP. You're going to get a bunch of that shit. He'll fall if that's the way things head. So I think Neighbors, for me, I'm just like, I'm a little bit like, I take some Neighbors in the slow drafts I'm doing in the 4th, but it's not like a big position, which is like, Neighbors is fun. I'd like to be to be heavy. I'm at 7% though, so it's like I'm just a little bit below market because he's fallen it out. Like I thought he was a horrendous pick when he was starting. He's in the second round earlier in like the big board, and so I was like, I'm completely out. But 3-4, like late third into the early mid fourth, like, and then late fourth for definitely that. I'm definitely in at that price, but I think he gets there. I think at the end of the summer, we're talking about Malik Neighbors, going behind like Luther Burden.
Yep.
So
right, because there's a lot of guys that still go just right after him. That like there's a lot of reasons for optimism, not a lot of reasons for pessimism, and so we could see that happening. And so my conviction is these types of situations don't come around all that often, where we get the market has gotten really smart, man. You just talked about that running back group, that's made zero running back and like light early running back builds more difficult because all the upside bets are like kind of all in the same range at more expensive prices. Now we don't get superstar wide receivers, right? We just talked about they all go in the first round. We don't get these dudes. Now some are going to break out, right? Like the whatever, maybe Burden is going in at the 1-2 turn.
This is why you got to take Javonte Williams too, because you can get Malik Neighbors later.
Exactly. You take your Javonte, Kerrane, Josh Jacobs shit, so because you can get Malik Neighbors. But I have no idea what we even just talked about for 2 hours. That was not the plan of what we were going to do. Some convictions, some best ball talk, but we do have to go. Do you have anything to drop before we get out of here?
No, check out Legendary Upside. Had a good article from Matt Irby earlier this week on Dynasty quarterback sells, and I'm working on my FFPC rankings, which I'll have out next week for best ball. I'm working on my main event rankings as well, which I'm hoping to get out next week as well. And I've been working on this article for a while. I'm probably not gonna be able to finish it today, so we'll see when I get it actually out. But ideally, like later next week, I'll have some of this running back stuff that I've been working on for a little while now. Digging into a lot of the guys I've been talking about, like the Trey Sermon and stuff like that's from an article that I'm working on that I think will be a fun one once I finally finish it.
Robert Henry, I'm sure, is mentioned in this.
I'm not going to write up Robert Henry, but I might. I might write up Robert Henry later. It's possible.
I will just remind the people that if you are subscribed to Legendary Upside, you do get 40% off of a Spike Week subscription. It works for monthly or annual. If you have any questions about that, please feel free to reach out to me. And then I will just add, I know we're obviously talking about NFL and all that kind of stuff. Underdog launched recently their college football best ball product, and I do that. It's fucking awesome. If you enjoy college football, it's really, really fun. And we'll have our rankings on Spike Week out next week for that. I'm working on finishing that up. That is when you've been in the NFL streets and you got to dig into every power conference football team and you're in the transfer portal era. Oh man, it is giving me a real headache, but it's really, really fun. The sweat is incredible. The college games obviously rock. But that'll do it for us. Enjoy your weekend, and we will see you guys next week. Peace.